Okay. Hello. Good morning. Name, me, a, li, s, on. My name's Alison. Welcome. Now is Sign Language Week. Theme, United in Sign. Thank you. As you'll know, it's Sign Language Week this week, so we've started that way today. So good morning to everybody. I will first of all go through apologies. Just wait everyone to join. I have apologies this morning from the board members June Brown, Joyce Duncan, Dennis Robertson and Sandy Riddle. But can we note those apologies, please? I'll then take declarations of interest, please. Any declarations of interest? Hussein, thank you. Sorry, you're on mute, Hussein.
Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning,
Good morning.
colleagues. There are references to mental health in various points throughout the paper, so my usual transparency statement applies, if I may. I'm a member of the Diverse Experience Advisory Panel, which is a named partner in the Scottish Government's mental health and wellbeing strategy. I'm also the lived experience representative on said government's mental health and wellbeing leadership board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Hussein. Thank you. That'll be recorded. Thank you. Okay, moving then on to my detailed welcome again to everyone, and good morning and welcome to this public meeting of the NHS Grampian Board. As ever, I would like to begin by thanking members of the public, staff, colleagues and partners who are joining us today. Transparency and openness remain central to how we conduct our business, and your presence at this forum is key to ensuring that it's foremost in our mind as we scrutinise the papers before us today. As well as the second public meeting of our board in 2026, this week, as you'll have also just seen, also marks Sign Language Week under the theme United in Sign. It is an important reminder of the need to ensure that our services, as well as our communications, are accessible, inclusive and respectful of the diverse needs of our population. As chair, you will know I am never one to miss an opportunity to celebrate the steps being taken across NHS Grampian to strengthen both accessibility and inclusion, and I would therefore like to encourage colleagues and members to the public alike to take the opportunity to learn more about British Sign Language and deaf culture this week. And I need to thank Rhoda Bird for teaching me how to open this meeting today in sign as well. So thank you to Rhoda in particular. Today's agenda reflects both the pressures we continue to face and the progress that is being made. We will hear updates from our staff side partners and clinical colleagues through the Area Clinical Forum and the Grampian Area Partnership Forum, which will provide vital insight, challenge and assurance to the board. We also have substantive items before us on our 2026 to 27 priorities, our current financial position and our medium-term financial framework. These discussions are not abstract. They go to the heart of how we stabilise services now while laying the foundations for a more sustainable health and care system for the future. I want to acknowledge how far we have come in our financial position over the past year, thanks to the tireless efforts of colleagues, while also acknowledging the scale of the financial challenge we continue to face. This improvement, though, has not happened by chance. The board's current forecast position for 2025-26 reflects significantly strengthened grip control and the delivery of savings across the organisation. It is the result of sustained effort by clinical, by operational and corporate teams working together. This is something, as I feel, we were able to communicate very strongly at the Scottish Parliament's Public Audit Committee last month, which I attended alongside our Chief Executive and our Director of Finance. We were able to set out evidence of significant savings in the current financial year, as well as the plans in place to address the challenges that remain. We also acknowledged candidly where we have not delivered the level of service we would want to for our communities and the very real impact this has had on patients and staff. The Public Audit Committee's scrutiny, alongside our own, is an important part of our improvement journey. It reinforces our responsibility as a board for accountable decision-making that drives improvement at pace while remembering compassion, safety and quality. We'll be reviewing NHS Grampian's priorities for 26-27 today. These priorities seek to build on the stabilisation work of the past year and reflect extensive engagement with the board, members of NHS Grampian staff, our partners and the communities we serve. I would like to thank everyone who has taken the time to contribute and help shape these priorities, and I'm particularly pleased to see that the importance of staff well-being is recognised alongside necessary improvements in key areas. As we emerge from winter, pressures on urgent and emergency care remain, and too many patients still experience long waits, particularly at the front door of our hospitals. However, it is encouraging to see early signs of improvement as new and expanded models of care start to make a difference to patient flow and experience. As we seek to build on this through our 26-27 priorities, I would also like to ask people in our communities we serve to do all they can to support us by making the most of pharmacies for over-the-counter remedies and providing self-care advice, reducing GP attendance, for taking the opportunity for vaccinations where eligible to prevent avoidable illness, and for collecting loved ones from hospital early in the day to aid flow. Finally, I want to reflect on the importance of partnership. In recent weeks, I have had the opportunity to engage directly with staff side representatives, including attending the Grampian Unison Health Branch AGM. These conversations are not always easy, but they are essential. They reinforce the importance of listening, of mutual respect and genuine partnership, working as we navigate challenges and changes together. The board continues to place strong emphasis on fostering a culture of openness and speaking up, creating an environment where people feel heard, supported and respected, and that is fundamental to patient safety, to staff well-being and improvement. Whilst there is no underestimating the challenges ahead, I believe that our partnerships, coupled with stronger governance and clearer priorities, are fueling tangible signs of progress. We will continue to be open, to be honest about where improvement is needed, while recognising and supporting the extraordinary efforts of our staff and partners. And on that note, before we move to the substantive agenda, once again, I would like to place the thanks of the board on record to staff across acute community support services and partner organisations for their continued professionalism, compassion and resilience under sustained pressure. Thank you very much. Thank you. We now move on to the substantive agenda, and first of all we have the minutes of the meeting of the 19th of February 2026. Can we approve those minutes please? Yeah, thank you. Those minutes are approved. Right, then moving on to item 4.1, the action tracker and matters arising. Notice in the action tracker the IJB finance meeting notes have now been received, so that can be made as marked as complete, I think, on that one. I would also suggest that in the minutes of the last meeting, under 4.1, page 5, there was an action around chief officers providing, around chief officers providing a formal update to the board on GP visioning work at the appropriate time. I'd just like to ask if that bit can be added to the agenda, so it's remembered as an action for when it's appropriate to have that report. Thank you. Any other comments on the action tracker, or can we keep it as recorded and the items as complete as marked as complete? Thank you very much for that. Thank you. And with that then we move to the Chief Executive's report, and I'll turn to Laura, please. Laura.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I will take my report as read and draw the board's attention to 4 aspects of my report. And I start with the Public Audit Committee. As our Chair described a few moments ago, I attended with our Chair and Director of Finance, the Public Audit Committee on the 25th of February to give evidence on behalf of the organisation in relation to our Section 22 audit report. I personally welcomed the scrutiny and being held to account, as well as the opportunity to share our improvements to date and the work underway and still to do as we look ahead and prepare for 26-27. Our attendance at the Public Audit Committee was an important moment for me and signalled nothing other than our strength in grip and control, progress and being on a path to improvement. We continue to receive challenge and support in equal measure, of course, from the Scottish Government Chaired Assurance Board, which continues to be held every fortnight. And that's a frequency I personally welcome, recognising the pace and momentum that is giving us. And my personal view is I think the Assurance Board continues to be a central facet of our continuous improvement. Moving on, and as touched on in my report, if we cast our minds back to the publication of the external diagnostic report back in October of last year, there's reference to opportunities to further strengthen the effectiveness of operational governance in the organisation. That absolutely chimes with my own assessment, and as set out in the paper, a number of changes are therefore underway, which have either already been shared or are in the process of being socialised with staff as part of a phased approach towards these improvements. And those improvements include a mapping of operational governance to identify opportunities for improvement, including any gaps that we may explore plugging in the months to come, a new extended leadership team which will be stood up from April of this year, and then later in the year moving to a much more inclusive decision-making model on the operational arm of our governance, but with that, and importantly, further strengthening the clinical voice in our decision-making on the operational side of our governance. Moving on again, stabilising our leadership is a really important part of our improvement journey, and I'm pleased to inform the board that we have appointed Gail Woodcock as our Substantive Director of Strategy, Transformation and Performance. Many colleagues know Gail is currently the Chief Officer for Falkirk Integration Joint Board, and I'm pleased to confirm Gail will start in post on the 8th of June of this year. I'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome Melanie Saunders as our Interim Director of People and Culture to our first board meeting today. It's great to have Melanie on board, hugely experienced board level Director of People and Culture, and I think it's fair to say we are already benefiting from Melanie's experience. As our Chair described, and as this financial year draws to a close, this is the final board meeting of 25-26. I want to echo Alison's comments and take the opportunity to thank our staff for their hard work and focus throughout the year, but also our partners for their continued support and challenge in equal measure, which of course we very much welcome. And as we will touch on in the agenda in terms of the priorities for the year ahead, I believe we go into 26-27 in much better shape with clear plans, priorities, and ready to build on the progress we can evidence over the last 12 months. And finally, this is not in my paper, but I feel it would be remiss of me not to give a brief update on the bed and anchor development to ensure openness and transparency, but also recognising the level of interest from our local community and, of course, wider partners and stakeholders. Firstly, an independent whistleblowing investigation related to the bed and anchor has recently concluded. And I want to reiterate my personal thanks to the staff member who came forward and raised concerns, recognising it requires bravery to do so. We've begun sharing the findings and recommendations with relevant staff and teams, and as a board we will discuss these findings, learning and next steps at a session together in April. And I'm really clear, this is nothing other than an opportunity to listen, learn and improve, which we will of course embrace. I want to reassure our patients and community that these buildings will not open for clinical use until we are fully satisfied that all necessary requirements have been met and a supported key stage assurance review has been received, which gives us independent confirmation that safety and assurance standards are in place. We last month shared the latest opening dates for the bed and anchor developments, and of course we will continue to ensure there are regular updates through our public board and of course for our staff for transparency, recognising the level of interest from our community and wider stakeholders. So Board Chair, I'll pause there. As ever, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura, and thank you very much for including that update as well. It's really important to do so. Thank you. Mark, please, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Laura, for your report. I think that I would like to associate myself with your attendance at the Public Audit Committee. I think that your representation of NHS Grampian was exemplary. I think that you and the Chair and the Finance Director did an excellent job in a very difficult situation, so I'd like to put that on record from my own point of view. Turning to your report, I think operational governance is certainly something that we really want to look into and strengthen as we go forward. I think our financial position, which will be hopefully related later on, is improving, but I think that's another focus that we need to look at with regards to our de-escalation from stage 4. I welcome the clinical input, obviously, as Chair of Area Clinical Forum. I think that's absolutely essential. And I would just ask that the communication is kept at an appropriate level for all staff. We must learn some lessons from possibly our portfolio discussions that we had previously and make sure that staff are fully engaged with that, which I'm sure that you will, but I'd just like to put that on record as well. So just welcome your report and welcome the input from Clinical Voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark, for those comments. Thank you. I'll turn to Derek and then come back to Laura. Thank you. Derek.
Thank you. First off, just to say welcome to Melanie Saunders. Welcome to the board. I'm going to ask a question, Laura, that I asked yesterday in a private meeting, but since this is in public, I agree with Mark. I thought that the three of you did exceptionally well at the Public Audit Committee. And I'm just wondering, we know Scottish Government were after you before the committee, and then we know that the committee met in private. Do we know what the committee's deliberations were, and are there any actions for us coming out of that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Derek. I will turn to Laura now to answer. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. So come back to Mark's initial question, and thank you for the feedback in relation to the Public Audit Committee attendance. In terms of the operational governance changes, Mark, thank you for your feedback. I think we've quite deliberately, from a Chief Executive Team perspective, agreed to do this work in 2 phases to get this as right as we can. So some initial changes coming into place from April, but that move to the more inclusive decision-making model will take place between now and Q3 is the timescale, so we can make sure we socialise the changes and make sure that we put in place the support colleagues need to move from one arrangement to another, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to set up this new model for success. So we're quite deliberately making sure we've got a couple of quarters there to do that work and do that well. And the work to socialise the changes has started with colleagues in our divisions and senior teams, and the acute triumvirate colleagues have joined me for those sessions. So I think we've started well, but there's further conversations, of course, and work to happen. But I think your point in terms of learning from the past and portfolios is well made, and we mustn't repeat mistakes. We must become a learning organisation, and this is one of those areas where we have an opportunity to do so. Turning to Derek's question, we are yet to receive any formal communication as an organisation following our attendance at the Public Audit Committee. We know the Director General for Health and Social Care in Scotland and Deputy Chief Executive and Chief Operating Officer for the NHS Scotland attended the Public Audit Committee a week after our attendance, where some of the broader aspects in relation to the NHS in Scotland were picked up, drilling down further, I suppose, to our attendance the week before, including escalation status for boards, but also the broader financial context. And probably the final thing I would say, Derek, is, and I'm sure we'll return to this later, is one of our key areas of focus as a board, as you know, is really agreeing those de-escalation criteria. So we've got a clear path and roadmap to de-escalate from level 4 to level 3. And I'm really pleased we are making progress, and in the not too distant future, expect to agree that criteria with our Scottish Government colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. Bert, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the point that I was going to make has already been covered. It was similar to the point from Derek, and it was about feedback from the Public Audit Committee, but I think we've adequately covered that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bert, for that. Thank you. Okay, I can't see any other comments or questions about Laura's report. So thank you very much, Laura, for giving the report, the update, and obviously any updates that do come from the Public Audit Committee will be shared appropriately when we can do that. So please be assured of that. Okay, thank you. We'll move on then, having noted Laura's report, to the forum reports. And first of all, we have the area clinical forum. So I'll turn back to Mark, please, to present this, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, you've got my paper in front of you, and given a very packed agenda, I won't labour too much on it. I think some of the aspects that we were picking out of it were where our area clinical forum actually sits within the national context. We are part of the chairs are all part of a group, and I was pleased to attend that group and actually managed to chair that meeting as an interim chair. And it was interesting to note the engagement that we have with the board and with our chief executive team is at least on par, or if not better, than most other boards in the country. And I think that's a real strength that we have here in NHS Grampian. And it does mean that the clinical voice is heard and is coming through. So I welcome that. It's always nice to be able to say that we're doing particularly well from that point of view. There's some discussions with regards to the advisory committees, and you can see that. And one of the interesting aspects was a very positive report from the Area Pharmaceutical Committee with regards to how they're performing across the sector. And I think there's a very important group of clinicians and staff really support that whole system working, which I think is really important in how we deliver our healthcare across the region. The ACF and GAPF development groups is working very well, and again it just highlights the engagement they have with setting with the priorities of 26 and 27. I think we had a very good input into that, but I'll welcome any questions that anybody has about what is a slightly shortened report in that we've had 2 board meetings quite close together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'll just add that as a board, we can see the clear benefits of that engagement with the clinical colleagues as well. And so thank you for the contributions in that. It's obviously strengthening our organisation and helping the improvement journey that we're all on together as well. And obviously being on it together is the key bit. So thank you. Any questions or comments for Mark, please? Kathleen, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions. One is related to the walk-in centres, and really just have we got assurance that they are not going to cause any detriment to existing services? And the second one is on the vaccine uptake, and just wondering how we prioritise the hard to reach pockets of the population, and is there robust follow-up for missed appointments or known unvaccinated people? Obviously for us in relation to measles, but there'll be other diseases we vaccinate for.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I'm not sure if there are questions directly for Mark to answer, or that other colleagues would be able to come in on those. The vaccine centre, is Shantini with us? Could Shantini come on the vaccine, and then maybe one of the chief officers on the GP question? Thank you, Shantini.
Yeah, so in relation to vaccination uptake, we do have a rolling program of work where we're looking at maximizing uptake. At the moment for measles vaccinations, we're, on average, we've got good coverage, but clearly, there will be some areas and some communities where vaccination rates are lower, but we have got ongoing proactive program of work where we're targeting non-response, and some of that involves work with community, so understanding what the barriers are, and then supporting people to access those programs. So it's a very targeted piece of work.
Thank you for that, Shantini. Thank you. And Judith has indicated. Thank you, Judith.
Yes, I'm happy to come in on the question about the GP walk-in services. We're very much taking an approach with this successful bid that this will be a test of change, and a big part of the early thinking is how we'll evaluate the impact and approach that we're taking. So those thoughts are very much in at the early days, and that will look indeed at service impact, patient flow, demand, workforce sustainability obviously being a key thing, and safety and quality. So we're we're building that in terms of the test of change, and that will include looking at our workforce model and, as I say, how that will develop. So we're not obviously at this moment in time up and running with walk-in service. We're taking a very measured approach to its implementation. That'll be in Aberdeen City initially, and then for Murray and Aberdeenshire, we're also looking at our premises and where that's going to be sited. So very much at the forefront of the thinking around this to ensure there's no unintended or negative consequence on other services. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Are you content, Kathleen? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Mark, did you want to add anything to that, or is that?
No, thank you, Chair. I think you saved me by 2 other people coming in. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mark? No, he's saying that worried about what they might be now. No, thank you. So we will note Mark's report and we'll turn to the Grampian Area Partnership report. Stephen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Similar to Mark, I won't take up very much time talking to this report, which summarises the outputs from Grampian Area Partnership Forum meetings in January and February. As is often the case, you can see the linkages, and certainly the this season of joint working with our colleagues in the Area Clinical Forum is particularly welcome. And there are items that are taking place in common. I guess the only thing I would say is that in terms of the non-pay elements of the now quite old 2023-24 Agenda for Change Pay Award, since we are now in March, we're now 2.5 weeks into the new Once for Scotland protected learning time modules. So they are an agreed set of statutory and mandatory modules for all employees of the NHS in Scotland. So it is encouraging to realise that feedback is being sought and is being welcomed on those modules. It's an important reminder in the month of March of completing statutory mandatory training and participating in the appraisal process. So
You're on mute, Stephen. Finished on mute.
I don't know how I managed that, sorry.
Yes. The appraisal process was the last, yeah.
Yes, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Stephen, please? No, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for your report. And we will obviously note that report as well. Thank you. And then we move on to 6.3, the Financial Recovery Board. Richie, please, do you want to say a few words to introduce this?
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Just a few headlines. This is from our meeting on the 5th of February. We received continued assurance that the in-year financial projections were positive. Again, that'll be set out more so in a later paper today. Our deep dive in the February meeting was on procurement, and that was very much welcomed by the Recovery Board. There was really good evidence shared that showed efficiencies were being achieved through procurement right across the system. And the board encouraged the wider sharing of good practice across senior leaders just in terms of that approach. And just to put that in perspective, again in a later paper, there's £2.8 million worth of savings forecast through procurement efficiencies for 26-27. We recognised that, again, the IGBs are at different stages in their forward planning in terms of reducing the need for deficit support funding. And again, that's also reflected later. Final point, I guess I'd share this morning, is that we were updated on the forward planning for 26-27 budget, and we noted at that time in February it was well underway, and we were assured that the delivery of the Value and Sustainability Programme will start sharp on the 1st of April, and that was really important that we sustain that grip and control from day one of the new financial year. So those are the headlines, Alison. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Richie, for introducing it. Any comments or questions for Richie, please? Mark, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Richie. I think I attend, obviously, a financial board, and I think the quality of the papers that are coming through, the presentation from procurement is a testament to those that are inputting into that recovery board. I think that the laser focus has actually probably really helped us to be assured about how we are with our financial recovery. I think it's been an excellent examination of of assurance within the financial aspects of the board. So I just think that it's been a very welcomed input at the time, and I think that forward planning and hitting the ground running at Q1 is really, really important as we keep on top of that. So just a comment more than anything else, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Having that space to do those deep dives into financial issues has been really beneficial, I think, for leading on to everything we're doing around finance. So really appreciate the work of the people involved in that. And obviously it's strengthening the improvement journey of the board as well to have that kind of deep dive into issues in a particular space like that. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Colette, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Richie, it's a very interesting paper. I was just wondering, I see that you're going to meet again in June. Is the intention for the FRB to continue long term, or will it be reviewed quarter by quarter? What's the intention here?
Thank you, Richie. Happy to answer that.
Yeah, surely. The plan is to still meet monthly up to June, Colette, but we did say that we would review that ahead of that time. So it's a live piece of work we've just started this week, actually, just to reflect where we're at and what would be appropriate in sort of medium to longer term. So that review is underway, and by June we'd expect to have an update for the board. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a part of an overall picture of looking at what we need to do as we move forward with the next year and the improvement journey, and working on our priorities as well, and how we best maintain grip and control throughout that process as well. So it's under review on its own as part of a wider picture as well, I think. Alex, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to kind of build on Richie's response there, I mean, in terms of that review, we will be looking at how we can involve the board in relation to getting feedback from the board around about it as well. So there'll be an opportunity for the wider board to input into that review.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Okay, and thank you for the question, Colette. Thank you. Any further questions? No? So we will note the report from the Financial Recovery Board. Thank you as well, Richie. Okay, and that moves us on to item 7, which is NHS Grampian 26-27 priorities. Can I just say what an extensive piece of work this has been in a relatively short timescale, and really appreciate all the work put together by the team that's been created to do this work and lead forward on it. So really pleased to see what's come up as a result of that work, and thank everybody for doing that. Laura, do you want to start introducing it? But I also am aware that the team behind the report are also here to answer any questions as well. But Laura, I'll turn to you to start, please.
Of course. Thank you, Chair. And let me get us started. So I'll take the paper as read and just pull out some key messages. And as I've consistently described over the last few months, I think it's really important we go into Q1 in April with really clear and agreed priorities. And as Mark's just said, ready to hit the ground running. What is also important, and has been important as we've done this work in recent months, is that we build on the approach we've taken in 25-26, which I think we would all agree has served us really well in terms of a focus on fewer priorities and therefore better results in terms of supporting delivery. And these draft priorities have been developed in the context against the backdrop of a number of factors, which I think just help to frame the priorities that we'll come on to in a few moments. Firstly, the need to continue to stabilise the organisation, building on the work we've done in 25-26. Secondly, and as I touched on in my Chief Executive report earlier, agreeing the de-escalation criteria, and I think we're very close to that now in ongoing dialogue with our Scottish Government colleagues. The third area is the need to, whilst focusing on continuing to stabilise the organisation, really move into that redesign and transformation space. And of course, we know we've got the emerging sub-national arrangements for the east and the west of Scotland against the national policy backdrop of the Service Renewal Framework and the Population Health Framework. And as our board chair touched on earlier, listening to the views of our patients, communities, partners and staff has been a really important part of this exercise, so we truly understand what matters. And this feedback from all of those groups over the last 4 to 6 weeks of listening has really shaped our priorities for the year ahead. I also want to recognise, as Mark and others have touched on already, the significant contribution of our area clinical partnership and area Grampian area APF as well. Really strong engagement, fantastic 2 joint sessions, and I think those joint sessions are really starting to serve us well, and I think this is one of the subjects we've got into in those sessions that has really helped us to move things forward. So the proposal as set out in the paper is to move to 5 main strategic objectives: people, leadership and governance, and prevention being the new proposed priorities, but then also retaining and further building on the 3 we have had for 25-26. So unscheduled care, planned care, and value and sustainability. And as you can see in the papers, there would be 5 programme boards to oversee the delivery of the actions and the proposed KPIs that are set out for the year ahead. And with this, a set of really clear enablers. So redesign, digitisation, infrastructure and partnerships. And also, as set out in the paper, there is complete alignment with Scottish Government priorities and the annual operational priorities for 26-27, which are set out in Appendix 1. And that's a letter we've received from the Deputy Chief Executive and Chief Operating Officer for the NHS in Scotland in the last few weeks, but also wider system plans and priorities as well. There are executive leads for each priority for ownership and reporting purposes as detailed in the paper, and we're just completing a piece of work at the moment to make sure we align the existing project management and programme resource with these strategic priorities. So finally, and in summary, we are asking the board today to approve the proposed priorities, to endorse the engagement plan, the communications and engagement plan for the launch, and with that the reporting proposals around the priorities for the year ahead, and take assurance that the priorities are aligned to the national and Scottish Government priorities that have been communicated recently to health boards and also aligned to other system partner plans. Just as a reminder to the board, we always describe we'd be looking at the priorities for 26-27, but then later in the year, in Q3 of 26-27, turning our attention to refresh the plan for the future, and that's still very much the intention moving forward. And echoing the board chair, I would like to say thank you to the working group who have worked so well together and so hard over the last few months and since December to deliver this work. So board chair, I will pause there. Shantini is our Director of Public Health, is the author of the paper, and may wish to add some comments. I know she attended the Aberdeenshire IJB meeting yesterday to get some feedback, which would be really helpful for us to hear about this morning. But if there's any specific questions on the KPIs and actions, I'm sure our exec leads would be happy to come in as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. And Shantini, would you like to come in?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Chair. So I thought I might pick up on the engagement with the integration joint boards and community planning partnerships. So as shown in Appendix 5 of the paper, we've done a high-level mapping of the NHS Grampian priorities against the Health and Social Care Partnership and Community Planning Local Outcome Improvement Plans for Aberdeen City, Aberdeenshire and Moray. We will do more work during 26-27 to map the activities that underpin the common outcomes and KPIs to ensure that the coordinated and aligned approach translates down to operational level as well. As you will see on page 46 of the pack, engagement with a number of partners will be taking place during March, so this month. Yesterday, as Laura said, we had the opportunity to present this to the Aberdeenshire Integration Joint Board, where this was positively received and we had a good discussion. The opportunity to provide feedback was welcomed, as was the inclusion of prevention as a priority in line with the IJB's own strategic priority, and also the intent to strengthen partnerships with third sector and services delivering prevention activities. It was recognised that there was a lot of activity in third sector partners, but more could be done to increase the visibility of this. There was also interest in seeing more detail on a number of areas, including mapping of common outcomes, as I've already referred to, and the work on becoming a population health organisation, recognising that this will require a whole system approach for population health, and also further updates on the North East Transformation Group as this evolves. Yesterday afternoon, we also had the opportunity to present this to Community Planning Aberdeen, where this was also received positively, and there was clear support for working together as a system on the population health organisation approach, and we will look to progress this in due course. Further engagement with the other 2 integration joint boards and community planning partnerships will take place over the coming weeks, as we've set out in the paper. I think that's all I was going to say, but again, to say thank you to all the team who really have worked extremely hard, and it really was a good experience working together on this. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Shantini. Thank you. I'll turn to board members then for any questions or comments they might have about the priorities. Derek, would you like to come in first? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I thought this was really good paper, so thank you for that. And I was pleased that we still have a limited number of priorities. I think limiting down to the 3 for this year has been hugely beneficial. So to stick with a tight number, I think is helpful. There are a number of issues that come out of this, though, so I've got 4 if I can, please. First one is, how have we used the strategic risks to inform the development of the priorities?
Yeah. Are you asking one by one? Do you want to ask all 4 questions, Derek, and then we'll...
Okay. Second one then is on page 37, a part of the section 22 report, it talks about focus on transformation or change to funding levels. And given the huge savings that have already been achieved, you know, which is a massive effort, has the change to funding levels been discussed at the Assurance Board? Third question then is 3 priorities on page 40, 3 priorities to Scottish Government for future infrastructure development. I'm assuming that will be considered by PAFIC and needs to take into account the future needs. So is this work developing with our clinical teams to help estates and come to a conclusion on that? And it's further made complex by the link to the Scotland East priorities. So how is that work being taken ahead? And just a last comment about legislative requirement to deliver net zero carbon. It's a massive task, likely requiring significant funding. And that, I think, also relates to the previous point about development for future infrastructure. So that's my 4 points. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Alan will come on the infrastructure and net zero ones. Laura, do you want to start off on the other questions? As well?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the questions, Derek. If I start with the alignment to strategic risks, absolute alignment. As we know, if we look at the top risks in the organisation, infrastructure is one of those, and that is one of the key enablers as set out in the paper, but also planned care and unscheduled care. So hopefully that reassures you that we've absolutely looked at this through that lens. Happy to expand on that if that is helpful. In terms of funding levels and NRAC, which I think is what you're alluding to, I think it's fair to say that's not a matter for the Assurance Board, and that's not something we discuss with the Assurance Board. They are discussions to happen nationally, but from an NHS Grampian perspective, we welcomed the additional just over 11 million we received for 26-27 in terms of NRAC allocation, which took us closer to NRAC parity. And in terms of transformation, I think we need to look at this through 3 different lenses. Firstly, what we do from an NHS Grampian perspective and locally, that blend of transactional savings, if I might describe it in that way, but also redesign we need to do across clinical, non-clinical services and our own workforce. The second space is the ones for Grampian opportunities that will be delivered through the North East Transformation Group that we are standing up. And then the third space is subnational. So I think we need to think about it in those 3 spaces when we talk about redesign and transformation. And I'm sure Phil, as our Interim Director of Improvement, will expand on this later on the agenda. Chair, I'll just pause there and perhaps come over or back to Alan in terms of net zero and infrastructure in particular. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. Alan, do you want to come in, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, so Derek, it's a good point in regards to the 3 priorities. We're working closely with the services and the planning team to make sure it is done joined up. Working part of the process, we'll look at how the plans that we put in align with the sub-national stuff that you spoke about. So again, you're getting that check that we're not away doing something that they're looking to do sub-nationally. But again, it's around a bit of challenge. You know, the challenges are what capital's got to be there and what sort of priorities. I'm sure we'll find more than 3 priorities. I think the hard bit for us will be finding what 3 is our priorities, given the lack of investment that we've got in some of our areas. And the net zero bit, so the net zero bit is always going to be a challenge, as you're well aware, Derek, not just in Grampian, but the whole of Scotland. However, what's happened this year, we've been lucky, we've got ring fence funding. I think we've got just around about £2 million that we've invested in PV and LED lighting. So next year, there's 10 million for the whole of whole of NHS Scotland. It's ring fenced again. We've put in our submissions and we've been successful. So when I go into the infrastructure plan later on, you'll see that. So I think the government are now starting to realise, you know, if the NHS is to be net zero by the time that they're saying the challenge is there and they need to invest in. And to be fair, they've ring fenced quite a bit of money, which wasn't there before. Whether that's enough or no, Derek, we'll know until we get further along the journey. But hopefully that gives you a wee bit assurance that we're looking at these both angles.
Thank you very much. And then Derek, do you want to come back?
Yeah, if I can, just on the one point about the North East Transformation Group. I read as well that the Scotland East is trying to do something similar, and how are we going to manage the North East Transformation Group's aspirations versus the Scotland East aspirations, because they might not match.
Yeah, so there's Laura, do you want to answer that one, please?
Yeah, I think I'm really clear. The two very different and distinct areas. So the North East Transformation Group is about Once for Grampian opportunities. We've got our first meeting of that group tomorrow, which I know we look forward to. The subnational opportunities on an east scale, so more of a regional scale, are looking at very different areas. So the two different things. It comes back to my point. I think we've got to think about three baskets as a board when we talk about transformation and redesign. There's local NHS Grampian, there's Once for Grampian, the North East, and then there's subnational. And I think we may need to do a piece of work as a board to understand what sits in each space, so we're clear on that ourselves as all of these conversations are emerging. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What sits in each space and what the overall outcome is as well on the journey. That's really helpful. Thank you. And thank Derek as well for raising the question about strategic risks. I think that's something that wasn't clear in the paper. And I imagine as the programme board work commences, that'll be an important part of their work to link with strategic risk as well. So thanks, Derek, for raising that particular point. Kathleen, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two comments really. One is it was quite an interesting read across from the Area Forum paper when it talked about the psychology colleagues and the lack of places for the applied psychology, yet the paragraph in Appendix 3 was about, you know, no health without mental health and recognising the current pressures, etc., and about the tie-in there. So I just thought that was an interesting take, making sure that, you know, we pick that up. But my other bit is under the engagement bit on Appendix 4. There's no mention of elected members from the perspective of the council. It talks about community councils and it talks about MPs and MSPs, and I think we're missing a trick if we don't actually include elected members from the councillor's perspective, because on community planning boards, you have a very limited number. There's only, certainly in the Murray one, I think we've got 5 members out of our total 26. And also on the NH board here, there's only the 3 of us that are, you know, representing the local authority. So I think we need to embed that too, because they're actually a useful tool for disseminating information. And the chair and I had a discussion about that yesterday. So I just think that it's remiss not to be in there. I think we should be addressing that.
Yeah, thank you. And indeed, we did have a discussion. And Laura, do you want to comment on anything?
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen. I think that's entirely fair. I think what we have already done is reflected on the approach we've taken over the last few months and already given some thought to how do we strengthen that. We've got a bit of a blueprint now, but we can build on that and build in this feedback as we already look to next year's approach. It's entirely fair comment. Thank you. Something we'll look to strengthen as we look to the year ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Mark, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the paper. I think first of all, I'd like to say we welcome the engagement we've had from ACF and GAPF. I'm sure Stephen will confirm with that has happened. It's good to see that some of the discussions that we had at those forums is actually reflected in the paper, and I think that's really good to see, because otherwise you feel that you might be saying things but doesn't ever change. So I think that's really important to see that. I think the 5 priorities are good, and I like priority 1 with regards to staff well-being and the experience that staff have, because it's been a very, very tough couple of years for our staff. Turning to page 44 and quality patient care, which I think is absolutely essential. I think it's 2.3.1, and you said with regards to the strengthening leadership, but hopefully this will have an implication of improving quality patient care. How are we going to track that am I on the right page? Hopefully I am. how are we going to track that in certain respects? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Laura's looking to see where you are. Can you repeat where you are?
So I thought it was page 44, but 2.3.1 quality stroke patient care.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Laura,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I think this is specifically talking about strengthening leadership and governance in the acute sector. Is that leadership and governance arrangements mature there? I think we have real opportunities, and our acute triumvirate may wish to come in here. But I think really what is helpful, and I'm just in the process of setting all objectives for my own line reports, including exec directors, and what this gives us is a real, I guess, ability to start with the strategic objectives and lock those into exec director objectives, and then they go right down the organisation, including then to the acute triumvirate and right down. So I already see that golden thread. So I think that's one of the ways in which we start to do this across the organisation. So it's absolutely locked in to personal objectives in quite a clear way, and perhaps in a way that hasn't previously. But I will just pause there in case colleagues from our acute triumvirate wish to add anything.
Yeah, please. Geraldine, would you like to come in? Or Paul, please. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, no, I can come in. I think it's really important, and I agree that it's something that hasn't been utilised as much as it can be, and it parallels the complexity of change in clinical pathways. You can't change one thing without multiple other changes, and it also reads across better when you're managing risk, because many of our strategic risks, corporate risks, and acute risks map across to more than one place and more than one group of individuals. So this whole opportunity of sharing objectives and then working through them makes a ton of sense. And in fact, it's worth mentioning that this morning you and I spent the best part of an hour doing precisely that as a starter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mark, does that help?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Paul. Colette, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of comments, so I'll just go through them all if that's okay, and then we can see who wants to pick them up. I really enjoyed reading this, particularly Appendix 3, which I was going to ask if that's a public-facing document, but I'll come back to that. It's good, as Derek says, to continue to focus on the smaller number of priorities, and I think this shows the ambition to move from what has been a period of stabilisation to really positive change and improvement. It's good to see in Appendix 3 that we're not shying away from the escalation and actually putting some force behind that to de-escalate where we are. The alignment of population health was discussed yesterday at the Aberdeenshire IJB, of which I'm also a member, and it was welcomed by the IJB as it's one of their top 2 priorities. But there was a concern that in light of other challenges that NHS Grampian might face, that the focus might come off that one. So I think that's something we've got to do to reassure our patients and the public that we won't take our eye off that particular priority. There's definitely potential for greater collaboration with the third sector, particularly on population health. And while it's mentioned in the document, I think this could be strengthened and made more explicit. They're a big part of our delivery function, and I think we need to make more of that. And I've already given this feedback to Shantini yesterday. Some of the KPIs are a bit woolly. They don't actually have percentages attached to them or specific targets, but I understand that this will come over the coming months. So I'm happy to wait and see how that goes. If it's supposed to be a public-facing document, frankly, I think there's too much internal jargon. We understand some of these expressions, but I doubt the public would. So that's maybe something we could take a look at. And I think finally, my main point is that a major priority for us is to regain public trust and confidence, the trust of patients. And I think it needs a stronger focus on that. I think it needs to state that very clearly at the beginning, that the reason we're doing that is to improve the patient experience. There's plenty more I could say, but actually it's a really good document, and it's great to see such a good piece of work appearing in a relatively short period of time. So well done to everybody who was involved.
Yeah, thank you for that, Colin, and thank you for your comments, which are enhancing the work as well. But I think I'll turn to Shantini, if you wouldn't mind, Shantini, to answer those. I think most of those are areas that you can comment on, maybe.
Yeah, so I think we can take that back and consider. So I've made a note, so I'll just go through them one by one. I guess the first one was around, can we make Appendix 3 a public facing document? And I think, we will certainly take that back and have a look at that. Making more explicit the strengthening of partnership with third sector. So this is in one of our enablers piece, and I think we need to do some work to look at how we might develop that. And certainly we've got work in train, and conversations and discussions are ongoing, so we would look to strengthen that. And I think so. I guess what we've got to remember that this is 26-27. We've got also a plan to refresh, plan for the future, and I think there is some work around. So what might that look like? We need to do some foundation work that we can build on to take forward. But to take on board the point that you're making around, we need to be more explicit and also increase the visibility around how we're approaching that. The feedback around the KPIs, yes, definitely take that on board. And again, I'd go back to, this is the 26-27 piece, which, I think we've probably tried to go as far as we can around this, but it will evolve and develop. There is something about linking it to population health outcomes as well, but recognizing that, we're not likely to see traction on population health outcomes like our obesity levels or healthy life expectancy. That would be a longer term. When you start to see a change in that trend, that would take a longer time frame. But unless we get traction on some of these KPIs in the shorter term, we will not get anywhere near seeing the change in trend in population health outcomes in the longer term. And yes, take the point on board as well around the framing of framing it around the why, and maybe being a bit more explicit around this is absolutely about the vision, which is about delivering safe, equitable care and supporting people to live the best lives that they can across Grampian. So it's bringing it back to our agreed vision, really. I think Laura might want to come in as well, so I'll stop there.
Yeah. Laura, do you want to come in as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Colette, for the questions. And just building on Shantini's comments, in terms of Appendix 3, this is absolutely intended to be a public-facing and indeed public-friendly document. So if there's more work to do on this in terms of removing the jargon, we would welcome any feedback from board members. So please do send that on, because you can get too close to these things, and we want it to be as accessible as possible as a document. And equally with that, the point around it not referencing strongly enough patient experience, I think is a point well made as well. So we'll relook at that over the coming days as well. Just a couple of other things. I think in terms of your point around force behind de-escalation and not shying away from that, we are not shying away from this at all. In fact, we are being as proactive as we can be in this space, and we want to get these signed off as quickly as we can. And I think we're very close to that now, and I'll update the board on that later this afternoon. So please know that's quite deliberate on our part. It was ourselves who proactively asked the Scottish Government at the back end of last year for the de-escalation criteria, and we're very clear why that's necessary, both so there's hope and optimism in the organisation, but also so we get that buy-in across the system as well. And then on population health, I think that's a really fair challenge in terms of potentially not having the focus that we need. But please remember, we agreed we would have it as a distinct priority this year for the first time, but also as a bit of a cross-cutting priority as well. So actually, I think having both of those, and you'll see aspects of population health featuring in some of the other strategic priorities, hopefully that will serve us well. So helpful comments, and we'll absolutely give that some thought, as Shantini said. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Shantini. And Alison, could you mark that as an action, please, for board members to contribute any thoughts about how to make it a public facing document. So there's action on all of us here as well to contribute to enhancing that document in that way. And just another comment on the third sector. I mean, I think it's really important to work with our system partners on that as well. Obviously, community planning partners already have really good links with the third sector. So I think there's something about working on and building on what's already there and the links already there and working across the system rather than trying to set up our own relationships, which might not be the best way to do it. So just a comment from me on that one, but thank you for your comments, Colette. Do you want to come back on anything?
Yeah, just on that point, I wasn't going to actually, but I think on that point, I've worked in the system, as you know, and I'm not convinced that community planning is the right way to get to some of the stronger and more valuable local charities who could really help to deliver some of this stuff. I don't think that there's that direct connectivity all the way through to the partners who might actually be able to help us most. So in some cases, I think it probably is right. There aren't that many large charities in this area who can help support some of these objectives and outcomes. And I think it's well worth putting the time in up front to get their engagement.
Yeah, so I think the message from that is a varied approach needed to make sure we capture everybody and work appropriately with everybody. So thanks for that, Colette, as well. Thank you. John, please.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. Very much welcome the report and the priorities and the step forward into this year, and focusing on the 2 additional ones with the existing 3 taken forward. Interestingly, I think the engagement report is very well written and will be useful in sharing with the public more widely, because that work around public expectations, I think, can start to be taken forward. It isn't particularly explicit in what we've got here, but maybe it's useful just to highlight that can be an aspect that in terms of those conversations. So well done with that. But I would like to see work on those public expectations and conversations continuing. I think the other thing I want to highlight, and it is in Appendix 3, is the focus on, so how are we going to change to get these outcomes? And we're starting to talk about demand in the system much more explicitly. And I really welcome that, because I think if we're going to do things differently and get past general comments around transformation, that word can mean everything and nothing, then we do get down to how we're going to reconfigure services, and that then becomes very tangible. So looking forward to that work coming through on that basis in a tangible way. I think the other thing to highlight is that, and it's one of the other general words that we use, like collaboration, is we do need to get underneath that and keep working at doing things differently, because we know it's got to be done differently. It was very welcome having the opportunity at the Aberdeenshire IJB to discuss the report. That was very welcome. There's quite a bit of discussion and feedback, and I think that's where we do need to continue with that and plan the governance into the various partners, so that as we're taking things forward, they're part of things, because having shared ownership of this is going to be key to joining things up. So that was really welcome, and I think just to highlight it and for us to continue. I think what, Laura, you've said about the 3 baskets of change, I think that's how you described it. But I think, again, that's going to be really helpful if that can be articulated and shared across the partners, because we need to get into a common language so that when we're doing our planning on services and money and other resources, we're on the same wavelength. That will help us join things up. So really welcome that you do articulate that. So a long way into my actual question, which is, as chair of population health, but I'm also on clinical governance, I'm minded to think about what are we doing in the committees to support this work around the priorities, and presumably, and this is a question, whether we're both looking for assurance that things are moving, but also trying to get in amongst some of the information to strengthen it. as Colette has said, around population health, etc. So am I right in thinking that the committees will support this by having a role in those two senses? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm just coming on that first as well, John. I mean, obviously our governance has to be evolving and appropriate to the times we're living in, and supporting the board moving forward as well. And there's issues in here as well that committees will need to have oversight of, be seeking assurance over as well. And that work will evolve as obviously we're here today to agree these priorities and then move forward with them as well if they are agreed. So certainly the contribution of everybody in terms of seeking assurance of working towards those priorities is going to be an absolutely important part of committee work. And also I would suggest to non-execs in particular as well, you know, when you're planning your visibility and your visits as well, to bear in mind the priorities that the organisation is working for and what you should be looking for when you're undertaking those visits. So the onus is on all of us to contribute to that work. But I will pass to Laura, please, as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good point, John. Thank you. So absolutely. So as I said earlier, there'll be 5 programme boards. Those programme boards will report into the newly formed executive team. But then beyond that, from a board assurance perspective, all of the 5 priorities map to key board committees. So staff governance for the people priority, of course, prevention into the Population Health Committee, and then PAFIC in terms of value and sustainability, unscheduled care and planned care. And within each of those board committees and arenas, they would scrutinise and interrogate progress against the actions and the KPIs for each of those strategic objectives. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Laura. John, you content with this?
Yes, I am. I think also that maybe particularly around population health, as this is developing, the committee may have comments on those particular indicators and the actions which will contribute to developing those as the year goes through.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure there's the comments around the Population Health Organisation as well. That's obviously across the piece as well. So how that develops will be really important as well. That we see that as something that's owned by the whole organisation and not by a particular part of it. So we will need to mature our governance processes to address that as well. So thank you for that, John. Richie, please.
Yeah. Thanks again for the papers. One overall comment and one question. My overall comment, again, as others have said, I thought it was a really well put together paper. And actually the cohesion and consistency of all the papers on the agenda today, I thought was really good. Just there's a lot of big things to navigate, and I just thought that kind of thread through the papers was really good. Just an observation. The question builds on something John referred to. It's also in the engagement report in Appendix 2. And for the community conversations, for 2 of the 3 areas, access to GP services was noted as being the key issue for the community in those areas. City and Shire, not Murray, interestingly. So I guess I was just looking for a bit more clarity on how that would be taken forward as part of this work. I appreciate that might be more in the IGB part of the system, but just in terms of that kind of you said we did kind of think, how are we going to evidence back that we're taking that on and can respond to that feedback? Thanks.
Yeah, Shantini, do you want to start with a comment on that? And it might be appropriate for one of the chief officers as well to come in on that. Thank you, Shantini.
Yeah, so certainly in terms of primary care, I think we need to strengthen how we work with primary care around some of this. So and some of that is to do with access to GP, but actually primary care is broader than general practice as well. So I think there is work that we can do together to look at how we what the offer is to the public, and how that can be more streamlined so that it's not so compartmentalized, at least from the patient perspective. So I think that is work that we need to do together as part of partnership. But the question was really around how do we evidence back, and I think that's one of the things that we are working on, developing some answers to those questions so that we go back with a clear sense of this is how we're dealing with the with the feedback that we've had through those committee conversations, that's being worked on, and we're looking to try and conclude that over the coming weeks. But I'll hand over to
Stuart's indicated actually.
Yes,
Are you coming in on that as an issue, Stuart? Or
yeah, I was just going to build on what Shantini was saying to say that one of the digital priorities for the coming year is the digital front door, or the MyCare app. And we were able to describe that for a number of the community groups in terms of what that functionality will bring, not immediately from launch, but over the year as functionality gets added. And I think that'll be a real step change for how our population engages with initially primary care, but also secondary care in time. And that was really welcomed. So I think that will be a massive change in terms of accessibility and giving people control over how they appoint, but also how they kind of interact with GPs and primary care and then secondary care. So just to mention that it's a digital initiative, but it has far-reaching implications for how people access care in the future.
Thank you, Stuart. So I suppose the message is that this is an area that's being looked at and being developed in various ways as we move forward through engagement and through the digital as well. Richie, are you content with the answers?
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's a work in progress. I guess I just didn't want that to get lost in terms of a key point in terms of community feedback, but yeah, happy with that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richie. Mark, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for letting me come back in. It's just looking at the Appendix 1, the fact that our priorities align quite closely with the letter from the Scotland's Chief Operating Officer, and I think that's really welcome to see. It was just one aspect of that, and it was number 5 in their priorities, was supporting safe and high quality maternity and neonatal services, and how that fits in to our priorities here in NHS Grampian. I wonder if they can give you some feedback on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I'll just add to that question at the moment as well, because notice where it's coming under the people section, and therefore the people programme board, and just wondering, wanting assurance that there'll be the appropriate focus in that programme board when they're looking at lots of things around staff engagement as well. And so really to build on what Mark said there as well, assurance around where it fits in terms of programme boards as well, I think is important. Geraldine, please.
Thanks very much. I think it is a really pertinent point, and obviously we've had quite a lot of discussions about where this is best placed within the priorities. And obviously from a Grampian perspective, we will be involved in our work to deliver on the neonatal intensive care unit as part of that national work. So there's lots of work already happening in that, and there's quite good governance in place as well in relation to the 3 tertiary centres and the national work. And then also, again, it's just picking up about the maternity standards and the inspections. We've not had our inspection yet, but we are obviously working on being inspection ready and the learning from elsewhere. So I think it's going to be really important, again, just to make sure this is built into our priorities and monitored as we progress some of those actions after we've had our inspection as well. But again, the preparatory work and oversight of that too. So at the moment, yes, it is aligned into that people and culture priority, but I think we're quite thoughtful about the other aspects again that for maternity and neonatal care that we will want to have oversight of. Thanks.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to come in? Or?
That's fine, thank you. As long as I know that it's there, I think it's going to be a real focus. I think we must be very sighted on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and really that was a concern of mine when I read this as well. Just and so to have that constant sight on it and the review about whether all aspects are being considered, where it sits under people and culture would be beneficial. Also, obviously we're starting with it there, but obviously to keep an eye on that one, I think would be beneficial as well. So thank you. Stephen, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, I don't actually have a question, more just an observation that goes back to sort of Mark's earlier contribution. Certainly GAPF, was well cited, and I've lost count of the number of meetings that I've attended and sort of witnessed the engagement. So compared to where this bit of work started and what the initial draft was, actually there was an awful lot more than sort of five priorities being mooted originally. I think actually the amount of work done to refine and simplify things down to what we've got, while still hopefully allowing, and particularly all either members of the community who are in receipt of particular services or our 18,000 staff can actually see where their work fits into one or more of these priorities, I think is no mean feat. And while I think this morning's conversation's obviously been probably incredibly helpful to Laura, Shantini, and colleagues, we've got the next year to think, the following years to think about, and of course the refresh of Plan for the Future itself. So in terms of engagement, I'm sure the next time will be even better than this good bit of work. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you. Does anyone want to make any comments in reply to Stephen? Or no? It's just I welcome the comments, Stephen. I think that's a really important aspect of doing what you've said as well. Thank you. Yeah, obviously I was focusing on this myself from the governance point of view, and we've asked various questions around governance. The only final one was a point around wording, I think, in terms of mental health, which is mentioned in the Chief Operating Officer's letter as a really key priority for Scottish Government moving forward as well. And mental health is appearing in our people and culture section as well, which is the right place for it. It's just the way it comes under all the staff wellbeing, staff initiatives, and then we have mental health. Just a reflection on the wording there, whether it's clear that it's mental health for people across Grampian rather than mental health for staff. I think just a tweak of the wording of that, because where it's placed, it's maybe not clear at that point. But that was a minor detail. I can't see any other comments coming forward. Welcome all the comments that have been made in the scrutiny that's been given to this. And it's, if we can now turn to the recommendations. We are asked to make a decision to approve the NHS Grampian's proposed priorities for 2026-27 as set out in the public staff facing document, Appendix 3. Now, I think we've made some comments about making it more public facing on that one. So maybe we could add word into that recommendation to taking on board the comments from today's session would be helpful. Sarah, is that appropriate to add that?
I think we'll put an action on the action tracker to try and do that engagement with board members out with the meeting to see if there's suggestions for how the document can be made more public facing. So why don't we put it in the action tracker rather than changing the recommendation?
Okay, as long as that's clear and the action happens, that's absolutely fine. So, all right, so we've got the first decision to approve the priorities. Can we approve that one then, that decision? Thank you. To assurance to review and scrutinise the information provided in the paper, confirm that it provides assurance that the priorities are in line with national policy and emerging subnational arrangements and Scottish Government priorities for the year ahead. Can we agree that assurance? Agree that recommendation? Thank you. Endorse the priorities engagement report and the proposed communication engagement plan. Can we endorse? Thank you. Assurance there is alignment with strategic priorities set out in NHS Grampian's plan with other system partner plans. Can we endorse? Thank you. And endorsement for future reporting. Note that it's proposed that the quarterly How Are We Doing report will provide overarching assurance to the board on performance against the key performance indicators for the 5 strategic priorities, along with the provision of more detailed updates to the board by each of the programme boards overseeing the delivery of these priorities. Can we agree that as well? Yeah, so that's all recommendations agreed. Thank you very much, and really appreciate the discussion that we've had today and the feedback that's been given. I think it's been really helpful to the team as well, and again the team's been working very hard to produce this for us as well, so appreciate that work. That brings us unusually early to a comfort break. Which is unusually early for us, but well deserved too. So it's 10:47. Can I suggest we come back at 11 o'clock? Would be the appropriate time, wouldn't it? Come back at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. So welcome back to the next item on our agenda. Thank you. See, people are here. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now move on in our agenda to item 8, which is the finance report, the January 2026 financial position. Alex, do you want to present to us, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We've brought this paper forward for full transparency and to complete the cycle of budget monitoring to the board for the whole financial year. As you can see, at the end of January, we're forecasting that we will deliver an overspend less than the £45 million maximum allowable deficit support funding. I'm pleased to confirm that the financial position to the end of February has been reviewed and, if anything, has improved slightly. The reasons for the improved financial position are multifactorial. However, I would highlight two factors in particular. The first being the progress we've made in the Value Sustainability Programme, and we're now for the 7th month ahead of schedule in delivery of the savings, are confident we will deliver the £61.9 million of savings. I can also highlight that the financial positions in the IGBs are holding and improving, which again is helping to support NHS Grampian's financial position. I'm happy to take any questions on this report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alex. Any questions on the financial position report, please? Derek, please.
Thank you. On page 77, we talk about staff in post are substantially below the funded level by about 100 people, and it's in the integrated
Impact assessment.
No,
integrated performance.
No, the if I could find it, the Paul's set up part of the acute
special care services.
Yeah.
Right, do you want to repeat the question now then, Derek?
Okay, it's
page 77.
Page 77. Staff in post substantially below the funded level by around 100 people, it looks like. And is there any reason why that should be?
Right, and that's in Paul's section, is it?
In Paul's, yeah, team.
Paul, do you want to come in on that?
I'm going through the pages as it is, but in general, the shortfalls in if it's the integrated surgical care portfolio or the clinical support services or Musk, Dr. Grace, many of those are clinical posts that have been hard to recruit to, and we've been using long-term locums in many of those posts. So that's, for instance, our acute medicine, general medicine service at Dr. Gray's, our vacancies in some of our orthopedic services at Dr. Gray's. We have vacancies in immunology and a number of other small subspecialties. They are for sure part of that group. I don't know whether June would want to add anything from our nursing colleagues and AHP colleagues.
Thank you. June Barnard is here with us today, but June, please.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. I can't find the actual line in the papers, but what I can say is that we have our Health and Care Staffing Act compliance, and part of that is our workforce tool review and our common staffing methodology, and we're working with our teams to ensure that we have got robust staffing in place. Throughout the last few months, we've been working to recruit NGNs, so there has been some over recruitment in areas to support how we move forward ongoing recruitment, so that will give you a level of assurance of the work that's going. But on a daily, day-to-day basis, we have a real-time staffing process in place that ensures that our areas are managed and appropriately staffed with a clear escalation process. I'm hoping that gives you a level of assurance.
Thank you, June. Melanie's indicated to come in, and welcome, Melanie, to your first contribution. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. So apologies, my first meeting, and I'm getting to grips with the papers. But the way I read this is that it was funded staff in post, and Alex will tell me if I'm wrong. Whereas what I'm hearing in exec and from June and Paul's description there is the gap between the funding and the actual staffing is filled with locums, etc. So I wonder, perhaps there's probably detail that we're not seeing here in terms of how that gap is filled in the way that June and Paul have just described, to give the assurance that whilst the established staff is low, the actual staff on the ground on any given day is hitting the requirements or the budget set. So there's probably just a little bit of data missing in that, in terms of what's happening in day-to-day terms, that we might just need to think about going forward. Does that make sense?
That makes sense indeed. And Derek, are you assured by what you've asked, what you've heard?
Yes, thank you. I think that's very helpful. It does explain the difference. I've got one other, Alison, if that's okay.
Of course.
Just a comment. On page 82, I found it really difficult to relate the figures in the narrative to the figures in the table. That's just a comment for people to have a look at. Thank you.
Can you explain the context of the table as well? What?
Yeah, if I can find it. Yeah. The table is the planned care improvement plan. On the table on the left-hand side of the page, there's all sorts of numbers, and on the right-hand side of the page, below the graph, there is a narrative, and I couldn't relate the numbers in the narrative to the numbers in the table.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you want to come in on that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Alison. I'm happy to come in on this, and Derek, I will try and make sure that's clearer for the next report. The figures included within the table is the activity we've delivered, funded through the planned care improvement plan. The graph is the spend against the allocation we've had of funding by the operational improvement plan. I will try and make sure that's clear in future reports.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And
Thank you.
Derek?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I can't see any other comments on the finance position paper. So can we, we've asked to discuss and note the update on the board's financial position and the current forecast year-end position. So we've discussed that and we've noted it. Thank you. And then we turn to 8.2, the Grampian Revenue Finance Plan and Medium-Term Financial Framework. I'll turn back again to Alex, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as we flagged in previous reports, NHS Grampian has been provided with a maximum deficit support figure of £36 million for 2026-27. So effectively the £45 million figure that we've been used to seeing this year in the next financial year becomes £36 million. My assessment is that the financial positions of the non-delegated services and the IGBs are improving, and provided we continue to build on the progress achieved during the current year, this will place us at NHS Grampian in a strong position to deliver a year-end deficit of less than £36 million. Included within the nationally agreed budget was a 2% uplift. This 2% will fund some of our pay award costs for 2026-27, with the rest being funded by in-year allocations from the Scottish Government. There's a requirement to transfer over to the IGBs their share of the 2%, and provision has been made in the budget for this to happen. As you'll see within the report, we have also made provision to support the projected deficits of 2 of the IGBs. The basis for this being these IGBs were unable to set a balanced budget without adversely impacting on performance or service provision. The financial plans are fully aligned in 2026-27 following the work undertaken during the budget process. Board members will be aware of the work being undertaken to ensure this alignment. We presented the combined plan to the Assurance Board, and there's a commitment to develop budget options for future years by the end of November. This work will be coordinated by the new North East System Transformation Group, and if the board were minded to do so, it would be worthwhile including an additional recommendation in the report acknowledging that the work will be undertaken by the North East System Transformation Group, which will help to further support our system transformation and also the alignment of future financial plans. We've been flagging for some time that we need to identify £40 million of budget savings and reductions to get back to the £36 million. And I'll now pass over to Phil Tideman, who will take us through the value sustainability plan. So Phil, over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Good morning, everyone. And I'm very pleased to present NHS Grampian 3-year value and sustainability plan for 2026-27 through to financial year 28-29. The development of this plan is the culmination of extensive engagement with our staff and tremendous dedication from operational, corporate and clinical colleagues across NHS Grampian over the past 20 weeks. So very much a staff-owned plan that we're presenting today. I'll draw out a few key points, recognising this is an iterative document. So against our in-year savings target of 40 million, we have identified 41.9 million of savings across 14 work streams. At the time of publication, 34.6 had been agreed by local teams and through our quality impact assessment panel, which is led by our 3 clinical executives. A further million was approved this week, and we expect this to increase toward 38.9 million by the end of March. There are 3 million of schemes still under development, and we are progressing these at pace, but we do have full confidence there's a clear route to finalising these in the coming weeks. As you know, our QIA and integrated impact assessment process has been central to ensuring the savings we look to deliver safeguard patient experience, clinical outcomes, prevention and staff well-being. And we look forward to submitting a full report of the panel's work and its finding to the staff or to the Clinical Governance Committee in May. You'll also see we've set out our current assessment of deliverability with our likely scenario that we will achieve the full 40 million of savings and a worst case scenario of 38 million. Our confidence level is really supported by the quality of analysis and narrative behind each of the schemes, our existing pipeline of new opportunities, and the governance that we have in place to mitigate against any deterioration of the position at pace. And finally, and building on from Laura's earlier comments, we have looked at the very high-level key themes that will form the transformational change required in years 2 and years 3. Those sit under 3 very specific categories. So the first being internal savings driven through NHS Grampian. Second, the pan-Grampian ones, and we're working closely with our 3 IJB and 3 council partners through the North East System Transformation Group that commences this week. We have done some initial scoping of opportunities, but we will continue to do this, very much a work in progress with our partners. And then the third one is the wider savings through the subnational planning work that is underway across the east of Scotland. So all 3 strands are being progressed. We will define the parameters of each of those, and our intention is to bring back to this board in December a full savings plan for the next financial year. So I'll leave it there, Chair, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you very much to Alex as well for introducing this. Can I turn over to board members now for any questions or comments about the financial medium-term plan? Thank you. Mark.
Thank you very much. I think a comment more than anything else. I welcome the impact assessment coming to clinical governance in due course, and we'll read that with interest. I think that's very important. One of the questions I have, or one of the other comments I have, is I think you've highlighted in the risks of the geopolitical situations that can affect inflation as we go forward, and I think we've got to be absolutely as mindful as we can be with that. Obviously, that with our control, but just being it's obviously reflected in one of the risks. One of my questions is the reduction in IJB deficit support from 13 million down to 3 million, and how assured are we that we can get to that position? I know we've worked hard with IJBs, and I think it's been an improved picture, but I think that's an important 10 million reduction from one year to the next. So just a question on that one, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, you've been engaged with the IJBs. Do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, we've been fully engaged with the IJBs throughout this process, and I think so, you know, the IJB saving schedules have been the chief executive team. We've also had them at the Finance Recovery Board, and we've also, you know, had a number of conversations in terms of that wider group where we've brought everything together as a whole system, and I kind of referred to some of that in the introduction in terms of the combined plan. Based on the information that we've got at the moment, that £13 million reduction is good. We did have slightly more money in there than in that provision, and because of the good work of the IJBs over the last year in terms of bringing their deficits down, that's allowed us to go and deal with that. The figure in relation to the £3 million is a £3 million reduction in what's left. It's not that there will only be £3 million left in 2027-28. So there will be there is still more funding than that available for IJB deficits in those years. But what we'll be looking for the IJBs who are receiving deficit support funding from us is to reduce that deficit over the period in line with the deficit reductions that NHS Grampian is also facing.
Thank you, Alex. Mark, okay. Yeah, thank you. Is any other hands up relating to the IJBs? No. Yeah, John, I thought yours would be. John, do you want to come in at that point then?
Yeah, thank you very much. No, just welcome what Alex was saying at the start in terms of an additional recommendation, because things, as I understand them, are very clearly aligned for 26-27, but we need some further work going forward around the discussions to make sure that what the partners are have in their medium-term financial strategies is aligned. So welcome that extra recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you. Colette, were you about IGBs as well? No, can't hear.
No, sorry, it's
no, that's right. Your hand just went up at that point. Sorry. I'll turn to Kathleen then. Kathleen, thank you.
Yeah, really just to pick up on Mark's point as well, I was going to ask around the assurance that we're building in that risk with the geopolitical situations, particularly when in the previous paper there was cost pressures related to energy. So it's just that we're prepared for that. But my question is more for Phil around the QIAs and the IIAs, and it's really just that I really appreciate that they're going to be reported to the clinical governance, but I'm just wondering what oversight the board could have on some of those with any of the decisions that are going to be impacted across partners or indeed specifically to services within NHS Grampian.
Thank you. I'll turn to Alex first about the energy and then to Phil to answer the rest. Thank you. Alex, do you want to talk?
Yeah, obviously we're in a kind of moving situation in regards to some of the geopolitical aspects and in particular the impact on energy costs. So we did add a little bit more in for into our plan in relation to inflationary costs for energy before we submitted our final plan. So we have got a little bit more in there than we normally would. Whether that'll be enough or not, we won't know until the sort of price settles down and we know where we're going. So just to kind of flag, we were aware of that risk and we have tried to mitigate it as best we can. And I'll pass over to Phil to talk about the QIs.
Thank you very much. Bill.
Yeah, and thanks, Kathleen. So the report that will go to clinical governance will be a very full and detailed report on all of the schemes and the decisions and the conversations that were held by the panel. So it will be very robust in that. I'm happy to share it with all non-executive directors and then happy to take a view as to whether we bring that report back through this board as part of the final position that we take in June.
Yeah, thank you. Kathleen, have you got views on that yourself since you raised it?
Yeah, I think it's quite helpful. I think I've said it before, it's very, very easy to fall into a trap that we look at it as a tick box exercise, and I think it would be really good if the board could have some oversight of it to make sure that we are assured that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think I would agree as well at this stage where we're working through a new kind of process here as well to do it at this stage. It might not be necessary every year, but at this point, as we're learning the process and having assurance around the process involved as well, I think it'd be helpful to do that, Phil. So can we mark that as an action as well, please, Alison, unless anyone disagrees? No one's raising their hand. Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for that as well. Thank you for that offer as well. Derek, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. Back on Mark's point about that £10 million reduction, I just wonder how realistic that is, given that the unscheduled care plan requirement on IGBs is pretty significant. So, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but it just seems to me that we put an awful lot of onus on the IGBs to perform, and yet we're having a big reduction in that. And equally with that, on the page 93, there's no contingency budget on any IGB overspends in the next few years. And I wondered how realistic that was. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn back to Alex for these. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, in relation to your first comment on the unscheduled care plan, I mean, you're right, there's a significant amount of resource was provided this year, and we're still discussing with the Scottish Government how the unscheduled care plan and the recurring costs that fall out of that. So those conversations are ongoing, and I think it's, but there's no there's no, what we're not anticipating at the moment is that the IGBs are going to have any additional cost as a result of the unscheduled care plan coming through. So that's something that we need to manage as a board and as in conversation and collaboration with the Scottish Government. In relation to the IGB risk, we do have a contingency in place for the whole of NHS Grampian that we are managing. So we're thinking about that in relation to where we go forward. As I say, the IGB positions are improving, and that gives us a little bit more confidence around about that as well. And we'll continue to work our way through that too.
Okay.
Thanks. Yes. Thank you, Alex. That's helpful. One more, Alison, if I can.
Of course, yeah.
page 144, on the table, there's reductions across the years for inflation and growth, except for a very large increase in 2030-31. I wondered why that was. And also the narrative says, anticipate reporting a small deficit in year 4, and I didn't see that reflected in the table. So it seemed to be a little bit of a mismatch there. Thanks.
Is Alex or Sarah? Alex, do you want to come back?
Yeah, if Sarah can come in on the inflation figures, that would be helpful, and I'll have a look at the deficit.
Okay, Sarah, do you want to talk about the inflation?
Yeah, happy to, Alison. The table outlines that it indicates that in 29-30 the board intends on getting back to balance. If we did get back to balance in that year, that would then allow us to be in a position that we'd have funding to potentially invest within our services, which we haven't been able to do in recent years, given the deficit position we have found ourselves in. What I would highlight is that will obviously be subject to potentially lots of change over the coming years, and we have touched upon some of those geopolitical risks that we are managing that may impact on some of those inflationary figures as we move through the years.
Okay, Derek's nodding to that. Thank you, Sarah.
Yep.
Thank you. And Alex, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I think we'll have a look at that deficit figure again. I mean, I think the figure's fine. I think the narrative just needs to be tightened up a little bit, Derek. So I think that's a good spot, and we'll pick that up for the final version.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Alex, for responding to that as well. Richie, please.
Yeah, thank you. Again, another good report. A lot of depth to the report in terms of what it's covering in terms of scope, but also how it's been engaged upon to get to this point. So just to acknowledge that the work that's going on behind that. I did have 2 questions, although one's actually been answered by Phil around that move to transformation away from efficiency. Excuse me, close this window. Yes, that move away from efficiency and transformation, and that process around building up for next year and the next couple of years is really important. So just to acknowledge that, I think that's so important as we have reflected that we can only take efficiencies so far, and that sort of redesign work, transformation work is going to be really, really important. So I'm really pleased to see that game plan. And my question remaining was just around again, confirmation that it is a deficit support funding that we will receive, not brokerage. That system has now moved on, and there's no requirement at this point to plan for repayment of brokerage in terms of the medium-term financial framework. So just to confirm that. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's fun for Alex as well, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richie. I would say in relation to the brokerage, the financial support figures, I mean, the £36 million has been confirmed in the Scottish budget. The other 2 financial years are helpful to get that steer, but will require to be confirmed finally within future Scottish budgets before we can kind of nail that down. So, but the indication of the financial support over the 3 years, I think, is helpful in relation to that, and helps us to start planning financially as well. So I really kind of welcome that change. We haven't been advised to build anything in for a repayment of the £90 million of brokerage, and we will continue to hold that line, but we can at the moment. But if that position does change, then I will inform the board.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. Thank you, Richie. And Colette, please.
Yeah, I mean, most of my points have been covered, Alison. Thank you. It was just to make the point. I think the geopolitical stuff, we've talked a bit about that, but in a number of different places, we're talking about reducing the costs of pharmaceuticals as part of the solution to all of this. And yet the production of pharmaceuticals, I think, is critically dependent on oil and byproducts thereof. So I think that's just something we need to keep an eye on. And then I've got a very specific question, which is quite a low-key question, but the table that page 165, the pharmacy summary, it talks about medicine switches, and then it talks about further medicine switches, and it just seemed a bit odd to me.
I think that's for Phil, the Value and Sustainability Report.
Yeah, so there's 2 components to this. One is we have a very high level of confidence of those medications that are moving on to generic. There's another group of medications that is more of a higher risk, and so we've just separated out it in those 2 ways.
It might be helpful just to explain that.
In the report, yeah, thank you. Alex was coming in as well.
Yeah, I think Colette's point on the cost of drugs is really well made, and it'll apply to IGBs as well as the NHS. I mean, in my experience, these budgets are very closely aligned to economic factors, whether that be, inflation rates, currency changes, etc. So it is one of those budgets that can fluctuate quickly as a result of some of the macroeconomic conditions, and I think that's a valid point, and we need to be mindful of that as we go through the next financial year.
Yeah, we need to look beyond the obvious in terms of what the impacts might be. So thank you for that. John, just come in.
Yeah, thank you. Apologies if this has been raised. I was got distracted. I had to chase a wasp out. So it's on page 108 and the local pressures and the 24 million put in for 2030-31 just jumped out as that figure, and then looking at the information about what it would be about, I would have thought that some of those costs would have already been sorted out by then. So just explaining that a little bit more, please.
Thank you. Alex, are you able to do that?
Yeah, I'll pass over to Sarah. Sarah, that's the paper that's in the medium-term financial framework with the costs in it. I think it's...
Yes, there's a cost.
Yes.
It's yeah. Thanks, John. And sorry, I was trying to find the correct page. So again, I think it's the similar point that raised by Derek. The medium-term financial framework outlines an approach to get back to financial balance in year 4 of the 5-year plan, which would then leave us in a position in year 5 of the plan to be able to potentially invest in new services. But I did highlight in the response to Derek earlier that is obviously subject to potential change given some of the potential risk around inflation over that period.
Okay, so it's not just pressures, it's able to get back to investment. Okay, yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Just a question from me for Phil. I think on the value and sustainability on page 167 on the nursing, midwifery and allied health professionals savings there it's marked as high risk, and just assurance around where things are high risk and may or may not be able to be achieved. I mean, how can we just have assurance around the process around that as we go forward when something's marked as high risk? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So there's a few parts to this. I think one, obviously, when we were looking to reduce our reliance on agency, there's a number of factors that go into that. What I will say is that the nursing midwifery leadership team have, over the last 3 years, reduced our agency spend from 14.4 million to 4.3 million, so a 10 million benefit. So I think there's some extraordinary work that's been done. We are at the very difficult part of this now, but the level of grip and control that all the nursing leadership team have in place is reassuring. I think once we see the money start coming through in Q1, we may reassess that risk level, but we're just being prudent at this stage.
Okay, thank you for that, Phil. Alex, do you want to come in as well? Yeah,
just really to build on Phil's comment there. I mean, some of that £2.9 million is, just a continuation of the stuff that we've been doing this year. So, that's, that, as I said, and as Phil says, we might be able to assess that risk once it's been through the QIA.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you, it's helpful. Okay, I can't see any other comments or questions on this paper, so thank you very much for all the contributions to it. If we now turn on to 8.2, the recommendations, we're requested to review and scrutinise the detail included in the paper and confirm it provides assurance that the revenue budget and refresh of the medium-term financial framework has been prepared robustly, noting the scale of the financial challenge facing the board, to approve the 3-year revenue financial plan and medium-term financial framework, which outlines the board's approach to ensure delivery of an outturn within the £36 million maximum level of deficit support funding advised by Scottish Government, and to approve the following actions in relation to the integration joint boards. Approve the pass-through of 2% baseline uplift totalling 9.7 million and pay award funding for pay awards agreed beyond the 2% baseline uplift. To approve a £13 million provision for integration joint board deficit support funding in line with risk share arrangements under the integration schemes as follows: Aberdeen City IJB, no deficit support required. Aberdeenshire IJB, 8 million provision for deficit support funding. Murray IJB, 5 million provision for deficit support. And note that based on the scale of the financial challenge and level of savings required, NHS Grampian is able to provide moderate assurance on its ability to deliver a deficit within the 36 million deficit support funding, to endorse the approach to delivery of efficiency savings outlined in this report. And Alex, could you just reread that additional recommendation, please?
Yes, Chair, to acknowledge, hold on, I just get my notes. I think it's to acknowledge the work to be undertaken by the North East System Transformation Group, which will help to further support our system transformation and also the alignment of future financial plans.
Thank you very much. Can we agree with those recommendations? Thank you for that. Okay, thank you very much for the work behind that paper as well. We turn now to item 9, the digital priorities 26-27. I'm turning to Stuart, I think, to introduce this paper, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just to mention that we've been joined by our Chief Digital Officer, Martin Innes, to help with any questions. Okay, so agenda item 9, the digital priorities 26-27. Paper before you today and the accompanying appendices are intended to set out a pragmatic, delivery-focused approach for 26-27 so that we're starting the financial year on the right footing. They also recognise that capacity, finance and organisational priorities all need to be carefully balanced. So the main paper proposes that rather than progressing with a full refresh of our digital strategy now, which we had commenced work on, that we defer that until later in 2026 so that it can be aligned with the forthcoming refresh of our plan for the future, as mentioned earlier, which reflects really the principle that digital should support and enable the organisational strategy and not be something that sits apart or out of alignment with it. So the digital delivery plan set out at Appendix 2 indicates where our digital capacity will be focused over the coming year, shows where it will support recovery, performance improvement and the known national and subnational as well as local commitments, and it shows alignment to the 12 programmes that it contains, shows alignment with our the 5 organisational priorities that we discussed earlier on the agenda. So oversight and assurance, it proposes, will be provided through the digital board, which is an established mechanism already for monitoring progress and managing risk, and the terms of reference for the digital board are provided at Appendix 3. So taken together, these papers ask the board to endorse what we believe is a kind of proportionate delivery-led approach for 26-27 that keeps digital tightly aligned to the organisational priorities, but then creates the conditions for a more comprehensive strategy refresh later in the year. But happy to take any questions and glad that Martin's here from a technical viewpoint in case I struggle. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. And I've got questions from Hussein and Kathleen. Hussein first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And can I apologise for my voice? I'll hopefully be able to get through my questions. These papers are extremely welcome. I think I speak for colleagues when we have been curious as to where digital has gone, particularly over the last few months. And I would agree with Stuart that this seems to be a very focused and targeted way forward. I have a specific question regarding one of the projects around Baird and Anchor, where it talks about self-check-in. And we know from examples in Aberdeen City that that often presents additional challenges to certain communities. I'm just wondering, looking for some reassurance that we would have some sort of a mechanism to inform people as to alternative routes where that self-check-in cannot be used, albeit that might take a little extra planning on behalf of patients and service users. I already do that myself for the example that I'm citing here. My second question is with respect to the Appendix 3 and the terms of reference. Excuse me, just give me a moment, Chair, my apologies. The terms of reference cite the membership of the digital board, and it's good to see that there would be reporting to the appropriate board committee. I'm wondering if what if any consideration has been given to particularly our non-exec colleagues' input into that board at a slightly earlier stage of its work, to make sure particularly that we capture some of that qualitative experience and make sure that these projects deliver as intended. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate his questions. The second one, Stuart, relates to the digital champions that we were putting in place in the first place that doesn't actually appear in this report. So assurance around that one. And obviously the first question is that equalities and accessibility agenda as well. So Stuart, do you want to respond to these, please?
Yeah, I'll come in on the terms of reference, and I'll defer to Martin on the self-check-in, if that's okay. So, well spotted, Hussein. I think that's probably an oversight on our part. The terms of reference are just being revised at the moment. So what you see here today is a draft which came to the digital board, which met when it met 2 weeks ago, and there are some constructive comments from the digital board members that need to be reflected in the next iteration of this. I think that's probably a misstep from us, that we will need to refer to the digital champions, because I think what we agreed was, whilst the non-executive digital champions are welcome to come to any digital board meeting, that we'd make being quite intentional about inviting them on at least a quarterly basis to make sure that there are those touch points. So we'll make sure that that gets added into the next version. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to our digital champions for the work they're ready to do on that one as well. Thank you. And Martin, do you want to respond to the first bit of Hussein's question?
Absolutely, and Hussein, just to the point there as well, as one of our digital champions, please do reach out to me if there's any questions or anything you want, even just some time in the diary. Sean as well, I'm happy to have that conversations and make sure you're informed of what's going on, so you can represent us best as well. In terms of the self-check-in, I think you've just described a wider concern that I've had since I started the role, which is to make sure digital creates equality, not inequality, with our citizens and colleagues. In terms of the direct and the signposted, we will be working with the service to make sure they have colleagues on site to help and support that, either it's through the communication beforehand or at the time. In terms of the wider look at equality, we made a commitment to make sure that for every project or digital solution is brought in, that we have an impact assessment done, so we understand any support that's needed in quality. And as the chair knows, I've held 3 or 4 sessions with our colleagues in the organisation, talking particularly with our neurodiversity colleagues who've identified neurodiversity, to ensure that we can support that. And my team, led by Heather Binns, is doing some excellent work just now to try and identify how we can support our colleagues more. The next step when we get our citizen digital reps is to work with them to ensure that as we become a much more digital healthcare, we don't leave anybody behind. And I'm happy to work with colleagues to help us work on that where possible.
Thank you, Martin. Geraldine indicated while you were speaking, were you coming on this as well, Geraldine?
Yeah, thanks. Just happy to add an assurance in relation to the self-check-in arrangements for Beard and Anchor. So there will still be receptions as there are normally. So for people that can't obviously use the self-check-in, there will be people in reception that they can go to instead. So it is optional for patients to use the self-check-in. We have been trialling it in some areas as well, just to get feedback from patients and staff as to how that's working. So we'll take all that learning on board, but just to give that assurance that that will still be available. Thanks.
Thank you, Geraldine. And Hussein, have you got the assurance from the 3 responses?
Thank you, Chair. It's appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Kathleen, please.
Yeah, thank you. I really welcome this paper. Whether we love it or loathe it, digital is going to be absolutely instrumental and key to transformation. So I think it's very timely. My question is around Appendix 3, and it's about the advisory members. I have to speak up for this being from Murray, but it's just that Murray Growth Deal element of the digital health and the Care Innovation Centre. I know the staff there are feeding into NES, but it would seem remiss when they're on our doorstep not to be using their expertise when we've got the Murray Growth Deal project. They've got, I think, 5 living labs. There's a lot of information there, and I think we should be using their expertise. So it's really just to give a plug for them.
Thank you. Well made, Kathleen. Stuart, will you take that one on board as well, please?
And if I can give some assurance to
Martin.
Yeah, if I give some assurance to Kathleen as well. So our team, John Eelbeck and my team, is linked in with the Murray Growth Deal to make sure we are around and supporting that. I've met with them a couple of times once, but I do think it's important we have their voice around the table for a digital board, in the same way as we have got a strategic board which look operational, which we're trialing with Aberdeenshire Council, sitting being a key partner to help us shaping that. We want all of our partners working with us at the best opportunity we can get.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for that. Derek, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm generally happy with the paper. There was just one line in it that struck a chord with me, and it's on page 185 when it talks about the move to expensive subscription models. And my thought is backed up by my own personal experience of not liking subscription models. If they're expensive, then why are we moving to them? Thank you.
Thank you. Martin, please.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite topics. The sad part is that the industry is moving to this way of working. So if we take our Microsoft example before, whereas we used to go and buy licenses and we'd operate off of that, they're now charging us a subscription-based model. Because that's the way the industry wants to move. It wants to move away from on-premise procured things to a much more revenue-style subscription-based modelling, and that's a big impact. I think we're about £6 million a year for our M365 now, compared to which equivalent of £500,000 a year it averaged out previously. Even one of our tools we bought recently, where we'd paid £60,000 over 4 years, has now become a discounted price, £64,000 a year. What we can do better is the work we're doing regionally and subnationally to see whether or not we can combine the procurement into regional or subnational, so as we're not paying a heavy subscription-based model, which we don't utilize everything the same way our Highland or Tayside are doing the same. So there's things we can do, but the biggest thing we're doing with that now is we are now looking and saying, what don't we need? What are we duplicated for? So actually it gives a good opportunity to do a rebalance on our digital estate. But I agree with you, as we move more expensive, subscription-based modeling is more expensive, but it's been designed like that by the industry, unfortunately. And we're not alone. We're not the only health board facing this challenge right now, or the only industry facing this challenge.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Derek, does that explain the situation?
Yes, it does. And it confirms my own thought that these subscription models are a way of people making money at our expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Can I just go back on that a little bit, just to give a bit of assurance? Some of it does help us though, Derek. So if we move some of our stuff to cloud-based, we may not have to do the big capital spend for some of our on-prem stuff we've done previously. So although it does cost more, some of it can be offset, not all of it. And I agree with you, it does cost more money, but it does give us some protections, even down to our cyber security, because if it's on the cloud with their cyber essentials protection, it less attack on opportunity for us onto us. So there is some benefits to it, but the cost is increasing and we can't hide that.
Thanks, Martin. Thank you. Richie, please.
Yeah, thanks again for the paper. Overall, I was content to support the recommendations with the rationale that's set out. Two resource-related questions. One was on national drivers of change or national priorities. Are they resourced in part nationally, or are we expected to soak up the associated costs with those national priorities? That's the first question. And the second one, papers today don't particularly include much reference to resources or funding, and I'm presuming that the refresh perhaps would focus more explicitly on that. So when that kind of comes back through in terms of what the priorities for investment might be, what that investment requirement would look like, and also the anticipated outcomes, cost benefit, I guess, and benefits realisation. So I'm assuming that would come through perhaps later, but just some assurance on that would be good. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Richie. Martin?
Yeah,
well, I'll start off. Can I start off, Martin, and then I'll bring you in. So Martin's doing some work on exactly that, Richie, which is you'd be able to describe where are we in the delivery of a piece of work, how much resources deployed on it, when it's expected to come to fruition, etc. So that we, if you like, we have our own digital how we doing report, which will capture that level of detail. But there's no getting away from the fact that our resource will be challenged, because whilst some work does come with national or regional support, a lot doesn't. And historically, there's not been a great deal of coordination at national level. So each work stream is ploughing its own critical path and not necessarily talking to one another, which then places that kind of balancing act on the actual individual boards to manage at local level. So we do push back where we're able to on that, and there are a number of outstanding questions at the moment around certain work streams, around will the asks that are coming come with either any funding or central resource to support us, but there's a number of kind of live open questions which haven't been answered at the moment yet. So whilst we're assured that the things that we've got on the list at the moment are within our capacity and resource envelope, there are, as I say, some unanswered questions that we don't yet have full assurance on. But I'll hand over to Martin. Thanks.
Thank you.
No, I was going to reiterate the same thing. I think, Rich, the other thing too, when it comes to resourcing the national or regional, we're getting to a stage where we're standardising our systems across Scotland in reality. So that gives us great opportunity regionally and subnationally to draw the resources together. When you're looking at things like rolling out M365, we identified the size of team we would need to redeploy that, but that would duplicate the work, and Highland needs a size of a similar size, duplicating the work. So it gives us the opportunity to look at where we can combine things to make sure we're using our resources, not just for the benefit, because if we think about the benefit of our citizens in Grampian, they're also benefit if we have the same systems in Highland, which allows easier movement for doctors to do care. So it gives us the opportunity to look better at regional working, partnership working with our colleagues. And I think that's what gives the opportunity. The funding of national project is depending on what the national project is. Quite often they will fund an element of it, but we have then got to fund an element and then ongoing costs. And as Stuart says, that's the work that I'm trying to unpick at the moment as well. So we can actually look at that and give a sort of forward view of what that's going to look like.
Thank you. Okay, Richie.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie. Colette, please.
Thank you. Generally happy with the paper, and in particular, I really like in Appendix 2 how clear it is to see where where things are going to be focused, actually. So thank you for that. I've got two general points. One relates to some aspects of other papers that we've talked about today. We talk about this refresh of plan for the future. And it'd be good to have some reassurance, actually. I'm sure this is the case, but it would be good to just have the reassurance that work isn't slowing down as we wait for the new plan for the future, because we've talked a lot today about moving from stabilisation to improvement, and digital is going to be key to that. So that's the first point. The second point relates to information governance, and on previous occasions with previous papers, we've talked about information governance and the extent to which it slows things down. And I think we talked specifically in relation to the implementation of digital front door. Can we just get some reassurance on where we're at with information governance and whether that is going to continue to slow things down?
Thank you for that, Colette. I think Laura can give you assurance that we're not standing still on anything. So I'll turn to Laura first, and then Hugh, I think, will talk about the information governance. I'll bring Hugh in on that one. Thank you. Laura, please, do you want to come on?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. I think it's fair to say we're certainly not slowing things down. We need to keep at the pace we've been going this year and retain our focus. Hence why I've been so keen to get the 26 priorities ready and lined up, ready to go. So we'll keep that momentum going and begin to get the balance, as I said earlier, between stabilisation and stepping into redesign. So absolutely not in terms of waiting for plan for the future. It's more that's a line in the sand in terms of when we'll refresh the document. But I'm crystal clear now. The board have signed off the priorities. The priorities are the priorities for the year, and the plan is the plan. We won't keep adding to the pile. What is in that document is what we will absolutely focus on delivering for the year. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hugh, do you want to come in on information governance?
Yeah, lots of good work in recent weeks on prioritisation within information governance, Colette. So we've got the team all back up to full strength now, apart from a period of planned leave for a happy reason, which will come to an end later in the year. We've also got some new colleagues on board, both at a senior level and in process at a more junior level, and particularly the senior levels really hit the ground running and taking on quite a number of pieces of assurance work. We are actively prioritising, noting that there's still an issue of capacity and demand, and Stuart at executive level, but also John Albeck, that's one of Martin's colleagues that was referenced earlier, are contributing from a digital point of view in the prioritisation of projects there. There are also, of course, clinical projects, research projects, public health projects, all of which need to be prioritised too, but Stuart and I are taking a joint approach to advising on that, and then taking things to Chief Executive team where required, and talking of which there is a recognition that we need to again consider what the totality of required resource within the team is, and that will be being considered with a paper in Chief Executive team next week to take a view on whether any additional resource over and above what was provided last year is or is not provided. So quite a lot of good progress in the information governance space, and hopefully therefore a reduction in risk of information governance being a block to progress of activity within our priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, comment about the totality of required resource being looked at is really important, I think, from Mark's point of view. But thank you. And Martin, do you want to come in as well?
Yeah, just to say that with information governance, we're working really close with digital, the bits that you made there. But when we brought in the digital governance process to actually ensure that we have greater visibility, it did highlight issues around systems not necessarily having the full IG process in place. We've now got that in place. That did hit us with a bump in the road at the beginning, but we've now got a really good partnership working between our cybersecurity, digital general and our information governance to really create a really tight digital security element on there. And as we go through for new digital solutions, this will be done alongside each other, so there shouldn't see any delays because we've done it in partnership. So I just want to be clear to the board, there's very good partnership working on this, and the teams are working really closely to support the business as best we can.
Thank you, Martin. Colette, would you like to come back on anything?
No, that's really reassuring, but I'm just going to ask one further question then. Are you confident that NHS Grampian will be able to roll out MyCare in the way that the rest of Scotland will be?
Yes, that 16th of April date, isn't there, written in that report? Martin, do you want to
I would say the challenges we face at the board are the same as every other health board is facing in relation to MyCare Scotland. We've got the resources, and there is a resource challenge, but there is some support from national on this. So we've got the same challenges everyone else is. I will be honest, Stuart's been closer to this from the exec level than I have been. We'll give more assurance, but I would say that we are, I'd be as assured as we are with other boards in this area that we'll be able to support the delivery in line with that. But Stuart can maybe give a bit of a more concise deadline on it.
Thank you, Martin. Stuart?
Yeah, happy to give that assurance. We provided a readiness assessment to the national team only yesterday, which I went through with Martin's digital colleagues. So we've basically said we are ready for whole population availability from mid-April. I think that the broader question, as yet unanswered, is what will we need to do as a health board to standardise our processes in order to facilitate the next functionality that gets added to MyCare. So, for example, as appointing patients becomes available via an app, that will require health boards to have standard methods for essentially prioritising patients and booking patients in for outpatient clinics, etc. So that's a piece of work which we don't fully understand yet. We know it will be resource intensive, but it's not necessarily within digital's gift to deliver that. That will involve clinical colleagues, for example, perhaps adapting their practices. So I think it's made quite clear in the business case around Digital Front Door that this is to be viewed not just as a digital project, but as an organisational wide project for that reason.
Thank you, Stuart. Colette, are you content?
Yeah, that's good for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you. Obviously, we'll be coming back to this as well. But Laura, do you want to just come in before we close?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the paper. Really welcome seeing this, especially alongside the organisational priorities on the agenda today. Just two quick points from in the governance section, really. So I think it's really clear that the digital board reports through to the exec team. It references the role of audit and risk committee in relation to specific projects. But what I don't see is where is this whole delivery plan overseen from a board committee perspective. So my question is, I think it's maybe PAFIC, but I would welcome where will this whole plan be overseen, because I think we need a holistic overview from a board committee and assurance perspective. And then secondly, like Colette, I really like Appendix 2. I think it's really clear, but I'd actually like this to go a step further to know when are these things planning to come online throughout the year. So if you were to chunk it by quarter, what by when, so we know if something's started, when it's due to finish, and then we can see more easily from a governance perspective if something is on track or off track or going off track. So it's more of an even better if from my perspective, but thanks for the paper.
Thank you very much, Laura. Obviously, on the board governance point of view, with the terms of reference of committees are being reviewed at the moment. Sarah, do you want to come in about that and how this is going to feature?
Yeah, digital's already in the terms in the remit for PAFIC. So yes, we'll need to agree a schedule of regular reporting to PAFIC on implementation of this plan. We'll do that out of the meeting.
Thank you. And Stuart, on the second point from Laura.
Sorry, which was the second point?
Laura, do you want to come back?
Yeah, sorry. Appendix 2, in terms of it was an even better if, how can we, we've got all of the programmes of work and the priorities for 26-27, but actually, can we look at what by when? So by quarter, what would we be starting and when?
I mean, I was looking at a draft of the, as I described it, the digital How Are We Doing report only yesterday with Martin. So that would definitely be captured. I guess we were thinking, would that come to Chief Exec team? Because it's a chunk of information. It's not just, the standard Chair's assurance report. So knowing that it will go to PAPIC is helpful. We'll just agree the reporting cycle. So that will definitely be included. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, helpful. That's great. Thanks both.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, shall we turn to the recommendations? The board is asked to endorse the deferral of the digital strategy refresh work to ensure alignment with the plan for the future update. The content of the digital delivery plan attached to Appendix 2, which allocates digital resource to those projects that support NHS Grampians.
Stephen has told the board.
Sorry, Dave Galloway, I think it's. There's someone not on mute. I think it's Dave. Thank you. Where was I? The content of the digital delivery plan attached to Appendix 2, which allocates digital resource to these projects that support NHS Grampians priorities and known national, subnational commitments, and governance of the digital delivery plan through the digital board to escalation to the Chief Executive team if required, which provides a mechanism to reprioritise resources effectively, both to avoid new unplanned risks, placing the delivery of agreed objectives at risk, and mitigate risks to delivery from inadequate staff capacity and or financial support. Can we agree those recommendations, please? Thank you. Thank you very much for that, and thank you very much, Martin and Stuart. And we turn to item 10, the infrastructure investment plan. Alan, you're going to introduce this to us, please. Alan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'm just introducing the paper in regards to the 5-year capital plan, investment plan. It's part of the medium-term framework. We bring it to the board. You'll see there's quite a lot of detail in it in regards to this year's capital, but also capital for the next until 2031. I'm conscious of time. I've got Gary Kidd on with me, who produced the paper with Julie Anderson, so I'll bring Gary in just to give a couple of key points, and then we'll open up for questions.
Lovely, thank you very much, Alan. Gary?
Morning, everyone. I suppose there's just a few things I would highlight. That you've obviously all got the paper. It is complex, as Alan said. We're in a very difficult position when it comes to financing the extent of investment required in our infrastructure. The paper outlines in section 2.1, it introduces the plan, but it also summarises the position for 25-26, which I think is quite helpful because it gives an understanding of the complexity of what we're dealing with across our infrastructure base. In 25-26, we've delivered around £11 million worth of investment in equipment. So that was 150 individual equipment programmes, ranging from minor equipment items to pretty major items such as heart-lung machines and so on. In terms of backlog maintenance across our estate, outside the major capital programmes like the Baird and Anchor and the mortuary, we've delivered in excess of 100 individual backlog maintenance projects, and they've ranged again between multi-million pound projects such as the replacement roof on the laboratory building, the facade on the laboratory building, the Blair unit upgrade and so on, to some much smaller, more minor projects, but no less significant installation of isolation valves in our steam system, replacement flooring in corridors, boiler replacements across several of our community hospitals. So quite a complex and varied programme we've delivered over the course of the year, but you'll see in the report the extent of investment that we've actually been able to deliver across our estate. Moving on to the plan itself then, Appendix 1 sets out the 5-year infrastructure plan, so this forms part of our medium-term financial framework. In doing so, the way we've presented the plan really is in 2 parts. So the first part is living within our means. What we have available on an annual basis as a board is our formula capital allocation. That's £14 million per annum. We supplement that where we can through negotiation with the Scottish Government around specific nationally funded programmes, such as major capital schemes like the Baird and Anchor, the radiotherapy investment programme and so on. But essentially what we have to spend on backlog maintenance and equipment replacement is £14 million per annum. So that first part of the plan, which is table 1 on page 205, and also detailed in a bit more in appendix 2 to the paper. It explains what funding we currently have available, how we plan to apply that funding, and appendix 2 details the projects for which we have funding confirmed at different stages of procurement, planning for delivery, and is asking for delegated authority to proceed to implement those projects and deliver those projects. Appendix 3 represents projects and programmes where we don't have funding confirmed yet, but we do have ongoing dialogue with the Scottish Government. We know additional funding will come our way. We don't know the shape of that just yet, and what we're asking is that, again, we have delegated authority to progress those programmes as and when we're able to confirm funding. And as I said, that's transparently listed in Appendix 3. I'll stop there, happy to deal with any questions, but hopefully that explains some of the logic of how the paper's set out.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Gary, for that. Thank you, Alan, too. Are there questions or comments, please? Derek, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. I thought that was a good paper. It explains it really quite well. What I would have liked to have seen was, I think, I can't remember the number, something like 4.47 million of backlog maintenance. And I would have quite liked to have seen the breakdown of that to see what we're actually spending the money on. Members go through visits and see what maintenance is required. It would be useful then to know if the maintenance that we think is required is being done or how it's being prioritised. And might be better done at a committee, PAFIC probably, but it would be good to see the list of projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Is that something that will be taken to PAFIC for more detail?
Yeah, in fact, it will be going to the next PAFIC meeting. I've included the full detail of the submission that we put to the Scottish Government, which includes all of our backlog maintenance priorities. So yes, Derek, sorry, that will be part of the paper that you consider at PAFIC.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Gary. Thank you. It's helpful. John, please.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder, Gary, can you say a bit more about, given that we're trying to move more into transformation and therefore kind of reconfiguring services, to what extent can those that are kind of exploring that look to either sell off assets or reconfigure the finances to release some money to come into investment? Is that something that yourself and the team can help people with? Thanks.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes, absolutely. We've just agreed a new work stream which will be led by our planning directorate, but supported by myself and the infrastructure directorate, and that will be focusing on the longer term strategic planning needs. And what we're hoping, John, is that as part of that dialogue, as part of that working group, that some of these ideas will come forward and we can look at how we can use infrastructure as a tool to try and support that sort of service transformation. But absolutely, we have an estate rationalisation programme. We're working very closely with services around what our future estate requirement will be. If buildings are no longer required, we can look at how we can take those buildings out of operation and release resource from that. We can look at how we use our capital programme to try, I mean, at the moment, we're focused on essential maintenance. We have to be because of the nature of our estate. But if there's a way we can kill two birds with one stone and deal with essential maintenance issues by transforming services and avoiding the need to have to invest within our own programme, I'm really keen to look at all of those aspects as part of our longer term planning.
Okay, John, do you want to come back?
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful. I think that obviously needs to be a two-way street where people are aware of opportunities to have those conversations as well. But that's helpful if we're starting to get into that. Thanks.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make as well. I think we need to make sure that that work of that group is obvious, is out there, and is involving services from at the very beginning as well, as part of what they're thinking about in terms of transformation. Alan, you were going to come in as well about that one, I think.
Yeah, just two things. I think I know John's steering it there, and it's about timings, and how long things take. So we've been well versed in regards to some of our older buildings. We come out of them tomorrow. However, they're getting used for delivering care or services with IGB or other people like that. So, you know, we need to consider the timelines and the difference in timelines, because we can move quite quickly. However, the frustration has been for me is the time it's taken for some of the decisions to be made in regard to the services for some of our buildings. And there's another aspect as well. You know, we've got some buildings that are on long-term leases, and areas have been looking to see how they can reduce spend, and they've been wanting to come out of these facilities. Unfortunately, you can't come out of them because we've got a long-term lease in it. You know, so we're still having to pay the financial burden that's against us on this as well. So it's sort of two areas of, I would say, light concern that we need to move on, and that's how Gary's established that group, so that we can try and move this forward a bit quicker.
Okay, we do need to respect governance processes though, and how they have to happen as well. I think that's important within that, but thank you. John, are you content?
Sorry, just trying to get off mute. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Richie, please.
Yeah, thanks again for the paper. A lot of detail in it and well thought through. The first question around IGBs, I think, has largely been covered, so I'll leave that one alone. Just in terms of the subnational planning arrangements that's referenced, and I appreciate this is early, this might be premature to some extent, but are you able to say anything more around how those subnational arrangements might inform future planning, just to give an example?
So I'll come in on that, Richie. So you're right, it's a bit early because we've not had any discussion or been involved in any discussion around infrastructure within the subnational. The groups are just set up, and Laura feeds in regards to updates. Laura did provide an update that they were starting to go and look at it, and there was individuals who'd been tasked with pulling together some information. So I think that's just starting, Richie, but potentially you know, we should be grasping that, because it can help us get out of some of the facilities that we're struggling in and get the use of better facilities.
Yeah, but to be continued, I think, that one. Thank you. Colette, please.
Thank you. My question is entirely about the governance around all of this, and apologies if I should know this. We're being asked to delegate authority to the asset management group. Could you explain what the governance route is, please? Who's on the AMG, and how does it come through to board ultimately? Does it go through it? There's reference to PAFIC, but I get the sense that not everything goes through PAFIC. So could you just set that out for us, please?
Yeah.
Alan? Yeah, so the governance group, the asset management group, is a group of multifaceted, all the different stakeholders, Colette. So most of the execs are on it, as well as key people for the services. So they're able to do that over arch and look at all the different schemes for each of the potential, you know, where they would specialise in. The process is a business case, so anything over a certain value produces a business case which comes to the asset management group. What we do is we do link in with the executive team, CET, if there's anything that couldn't be agreed there, we would link in with CET for further discussions. But the main reporting bit for the board is PAFIC. So what happens at PAFIC, actually more goes to PAFIC rather than less, Colette. So what you would see here is a lot less than what's going into PAFIC. We have a lot more detail. We report each PAFIC with different aspects of the asset management group, where it's equipment, where it's leases, where it's capital investment. So that's the key area for the board, the board committee to scrutinise, and then obviously the minutes from that come into the board, the main board. Anything over £1 million, Colette, has to come to the board for support.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for that. But we're being asked to delegate the spend of quite a few over £1 million at this meeting. So I'm just wondering what the governance and whether I just have a sense of unease about it. That's possibly because I've not been involved in the detail of this, but I just wonder if others are content with that too.
What's happened because of the standing financial instruction, the £1 million has been set. It needs board delegation. Unfortunately, you don't get very much for £1 million now in capital investment within estates. So what we agreed, because it was taking up too much board time coming with each individual project, if we knew that projects were potentially going to be over £1 million at the start of the year, we would bring it here to the board to get it agreed to go further. And then once the funding was, as long as it fell within that funding level, it wouldn't come back. It would just be an update to the board as part of the ongoing updates through PAFIC.
Before I come back to Colette, Gary, do you want to come in?
Yeah, it was maybe just to follow on from that, the figures that are in the report against individual schemes. So we've identified the individual schemes that we're looking to take forward. These are not to be exceeded budget figures that we've identified against those. As Alan said, 2 years ago, we started to bring forward the plan written in this way, so you could see in advance which projects were likely to be delivered during the course of the year. Obviously, once we progress those projects, we need to move quickly in order to implement during the course of the financial year. And what we did find is that there were multiple cases having to be brought forward to the board. So the suggestion was that we would build it into the financial plan at the beginning of the year. In this way, identify a not to be exceeded budget for each of the projects that we knew with certainty were going to be required to be delivered during the course of the year, and for which we had certainty over funding, and look for delegated authority to be given to the asset management group. But that's clearly within the board's gift. As Alan said, the schedule of reserve decisions delegate projects up to £1 million to the asset management group.
So we've got the projects listed here, and we've got the maximum amount of money for them, and we've got the going through the asset management group process outlined to us. Colette, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to give people more work than is absolutely necessary, but if the issue is that £1 million's just not enough these days, perhaps there's a case to be made that as we review terms of reference and various other things, we ought to review the schedule as well.
That would seem to make sense from the conversation we've just had. Yes, that it was maybe written in a different time. We just talked about issues of costs going up as well in the previous paper. So I think that would be a sensible thing to do as we're looking at our committees going forward and delegations as well. Laura, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Just on governance and looping back to my update in my own Chief Exec's report earlier in terms of operational governance and strengthening. So this is one of the areas that we're looking at. So I think there's two aspects here. In terms of asset management group, it's only as good as who attends. Let's be honest about that. So we need to be clear. Look at attendance. What's the level of engagement and are the right people attending that, i.e. executive directors principally? So that's a piece of work underway. The second action that we're talking about at the moment is making sure asset management group formally reports through to the executive team with the chair's assurance report, because that's a missing link at the moment. So those two things are both things that are work underway, with other improvements linked to the operational and governance work that I discussed earlier that I know we'll return to in due course. Thanks.
Thank you. That's helpful to hear as well. So it sees the overall point of work. Sarah, the bit about reviewing the amount that can be delegated authority, can you comment on that, whether that's appropriate?
It's not a board secretary thing. I think Alex has got his hand up.
Alex, yes, that's the financial governance, isn't it? Alex, sorry,
apologies.
Yeah,
I mean, that was something that we thought about 2 years ago, but we decided that to give the board the visibility of some of those projects coming forward to keep it at that £1 million. We can go back and have another look at that, and we can have another look at how PAFIC kind of feeds into that process as well. So we will review that, but what I can't say at the moment is it will definitely move it to X, Y, and Z. I think we need to go through a process and an evaluation on that basis.
No, I totally agree. The review and the process is important, but can we write that as an action then, that we'll be going through that review, Alex, please? Alison, can you record that as an action? Does that help then, Colette?
That's really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that discussion. That was very helpful. Just a question from me as well, Gary, on the short-term maintenance list of things on short-term maintenance and the things there that talks about being risk assessed, and it talks in risk assessed in terms of healthcare associated infections as part of it and as what they're doing. Can you just run through how that risk assessment is done in terms of those issues when you are looking at the short-term maintenance work? What's the process for risk assessing?
Yeah, well, the starting point is we look at where there are immediate failures or there is a high risk of immediate failure, looking at the physical environment. So as a combination of things, that's looking at the information that we hold on our assets and the sort of formal survey information and so on that we've got, but also using the information from the Estates Help Desk and the experience of the estates officers in terms of their knowledge of the reliability and where there's likely to be failures and where we're dealing with current failures. As part of that, we do have an HAI lead within the estates team who works very closely with the IPCT, and they identify a list of areas that they consider require action, and quite often they're fabric type issues, their floor coverings, their cupboards, the things like that. So there is always an ongoing list of requirements from an HAI perspective, and we build that into our process alongside issues like ventilation systems, electrical systems, keeping the buildings wind and watertight, and so on. And the risk assessment is in the first stage, how likely are those items to fail? What is the consequence of those items failing? Will it create issues in terms of continuity of service if they do fail? Will it create health and safety issues if they do fail? And then that's how we prioritise the investment. And I have to say, the investment that we have available is always very small compared with the actual requirement that we're dealing with.
Yeah, but thank you. Clarifying that process is helpful. So thank you very much for the clarity. Appreciate that. Okay, I can't see any other questions or comments on this paper, and we have an action for Alex coming out of this. But if we turn to the recommendations, assurance, the board is asked to review and scrutinise the information and confirm it provides assurance that the infrastructure investment plan reflects a risk-based approach to infrastructure investment within the confirmed funding constraints. To decide that the board approves the NHS Grampian 5-year infrastructure plan 26 to 31 attached as Appendix 1. The board delegates authority to the asset management group for delivery of the works listed in Appendix 2, including those project forecast costs exceeding £1 million, subject to individual identified items being within total budgetary limits identified within the plan, and delegates the authority to the asset management group for delivery of the programme of items identified in Appendix 3, subject to confirmation of funding. Can we agree those recommendations, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. And then can we turn to item 11, the Joint Protection Plan 26-28. Just before I turn to the plan itself, I'd like to bring John in because this plan's been through Population Health Committee. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Yeah, at the committee, we had a pre-recorded presentation from Chris on the renewal of the plan. And that's actually on the intranet if anybody's interested to go back to view that at some point. We had a very good discussion on this, and we noted that there's been some increase in local health protection capacity, helping to offset wider environmental health pressures, which was welcome. But there was concern to check that out in terms of capacity. We've also heard about the good joint working that is taking place locally. We looked at the workforce challenge quite fully, and because of the ageing workforce that's evident, but we were assured about contingency in terms of boards supporting one another on mutual aid should that be required, because on occasion protecting health can require that. We see that in the south of England currently, where work is taking place. So that was good. There was some red flags in the report which we looked at in detail and heard from Shantini and colleagues around pandemic preparedness. So we were able to get some assurance on that, but also note that national work is to take place, and that will enhance what we will look at in due course. We also investigated or got into the bloodborne virus issues, and so we were hearing about that. So overall, we were able as a committee to be assured that the policies and processes necessary are in place and robust on the basis of what we heard. And so we endorse the plan to come forward here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. And I'll turn to Shantini now, please, as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alison. So I'm pleased to introduce the Joint Health Protection Plan for 26 to 28. And so this is a statutory plan developed jointly with our local authority partners and sets out how we will work together to prepare for and respond to health protection risks across Grampian. As you've already heard, prior to coming to the board today, we've had a deep dive on this topic with the Population Health Committee, which provided an opportunity to delve into the detail that underpins this plan. John's already reported on that. So the plan overall sets out a clear shared understanding of our priority health protection risks for Grampian, including infectious disease, environmental hazards and system resilience, aligned with national policy and local risk assessments. It strengthens partnership governance and accountability, clarifying roles, escalation routes and assurance arrangements across NHS Grampian, local authorities and other partners. It also places a strong emphasis on preparedness and prevention, including surveillance, workforce readiness and joint planning, recognising, of course, as John has alluded to, there is more work to do in those areas to ensure that we are all well placed to respond quickly and effectively to incidents. So the paper is presented for the board's assurance and approval to confirm that robust arrangements are in place to meet our statutory duties and protect the health of our population. I'm joined today by Chris Littlejohn, who's our head of protecting health, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Shantini. Thank you. So I turn to the board for any questions or comments on this paper, please. Ian, please.
Thank you, Alison. I just wanted to, if I may, echo John's comments about the presentation that the Population Health Committee got in advance of our meeting, so that we could all watch it in advance, and rather than spend meeting time on that. I thought that was a great idea. It's obviously not appropriate for every single report that we deal with, but it was a great way of us having time to look at the presentation, review bits we wanted to maybe listen to again, and then ask hopefully even more sensible questions in the actual meeting. So that was great. I'm obviously happy with the report and happy with the recommendations. Oh, and can I, given that this refers to local authorities, make a transparency statement in relation to this item, and also anywhere else where Aberdeen City Council is mentioned in the papers. Yeah. And apologies for being late. I was at Margaret Thacker's funeral.
No, I appreciate that, Ian, and Alison will record appropriately transparency statements, and thank you for the comments. And I would agree that the process of having video clips like we had on this one in advance really helps explain the situation and helps focus the scrutiny questions as well. So appreciate Chris's presentation for that one. Any other questions or comments about this? Colette, please.
It's just a question. I think I've picked it up from the paper, but I just want to be clear. In section 3, where it talks about the context for health protection, the first thing that is mentioned is climate change. And with adverse weather events, that's obviously going to be something that's going to affect us more and more. Is it right to assume that the responsibility for that sits entirely with the Grampian Local Resilience Partnership, or is there any link into this paper?
Shantini, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so the Local Resilience Partnership is in relation to preparedness for responding to events related to the preparedness and the adverse weather events, etc. The response to that, and some of the preparedness in terms of being able to respond to that. Separately to that, though, we have got the Scottish National Climate Adaptation Plan and recommendations from that. That's just come out recently. So in terms of prevention, preparedness for dealing with that and preventing or mitigating the impacts of climate change, that then sits across the whole board really, but we're looking at how we respond and take those actions within that plan, and that's mainly through the climate change and sustainability group that we've got in Grampian, that work stream.
Okay, Colette?
Yeah, at some point I'll speak to Shantini separately. It'd be good to have the bigger picture on how all these things link together. Thank you, but not for now.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kathleen, you coming in on that point as well? Thank you.
No, a different point. Yeah, no, thank you. I really enjoyed this presentation at Population Health. It was really excellent, and I echo the comments about the video. It was a really useful way of introducing the paper. It's just on section 8 about the public involvement and feedback. I think it's really relevant, but I can't pick it out from the plan about what we're doing on comms and engagement about the sort of, particularly around the zoonotic infections and probably around antibiotic resistance, about, making sure that we're messaging, proactively, as well as just sort of on exercises and on plan, because I think there's a lot of zoonotic diseases that are quite seasonal, and I think some joined up approach, joining in with NFUS or with the APHA body, that we could some joined up comms on making people more aware. We all know about the tick and Lyme's disease stories that go out, but even sort of more local things like ORF and some of the other sort of zoonotic infections that are very, very seasonal, making sure that there's a lot of public awareness so that these things are getting picked up quicker.
Thank you. Shantini?
I think Chris might want to come in on this one. I know it's certainly something that is discussed and looked at through the Joint Health Protection group, which Chris chairs, and also through learning, through the national groups that we've got. We're constantly working to strengthen our networks and how we work together with different agencies. But Chris, you might want to come in on the additional detail around that.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I think it's entirely relevant observation, and something which we routinely do. So both ourselves and local authorities and APHA, as you mentioned, I mean, we do work together in terms of public communications, but also targeted communications to those identified as at greater risk, alongside, of course, national agencies, Public Health Scotland, UK Health Security Agency. So just to give reassurance that yes, we do provide a lot of outward information out to the public. I think what I take from Part 8, so that it's taken from the Scottish Government template for the Joint Health Protection Plans, I think is about the aspiration to get some public involvement in the actual plan itself. And that, I have to say, I mean, that's quite a tricky thing to do, but I think that is the aspiration. And different teams that are involved in the health protection sphere have got different ways of obtaining public feedback on what the services or what the teams actually do. And I think we'd like to do a bit more of that to inform planning going forward.
Thank you, Chris. Kathleen, content?
Yeah, I think it's really useful because I think there are pockets of the population, certainly occupational pockets, like farmers, maybe like vets, maybe like fishermen, who experience, different zoonotic infections that, that the messaging needs to be kind of quite nuanced.
Yeah, and appreciate this important point. Thanks, Kathleen, and Chris was nodding there as well. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, I can't see any other questions or comments. So thank you very much, Shantini, Chris and John for the report here and presenting it and commenting on it. Can we turn to the recommendations then? To the board are presented with the information in the paper to provide assurance that necessary resources and arrangements are in place and to endorse the renewed Joint Health Protection Plan 2026 to 2028. Can we agree the recommendation, please? Thank you very much. Thank you for that. That leads us on to item 12, the approved committee forum and IJB minutes for noting. And the first item is issues from committee chairs, and I haven't had any issues highlighted to me from committee chairs this month. No one's coming in. Thank you very much for that. So then the committee reports, 12.1, the Clinical Governance Committee, 25th of November 2025. Can we note that, please? Thank you. The Population Health Committee, 21st of November 25. Can we endorse that, please? Note that one, please, sorry. And then the forums, the 12.3, the Area Clinical Forum of the 14th of January 26. Can we note that, please? Thank you. And the Grampian Area Partnership Forum, 2 of those, 15th of January 26. Can we note? And the 12th of February 2026. Can we note that as well, please? Brilliant. Then moving on to item 13, any other business? I haven't had any other business notified for me for this meeting. Thank you for that. Thank you. And then the date of our next meeting is Thursday, the 11th of June, 2026. And note the time for that, please. It will be at 1:30. Thursday, the 11th of June, 2026 at 1:30. Please really note that time. Talking about times, I've got a closed board meeting for our board members this afternoon. It's scheduled to start at 14:30. Does anyone have any objections to bringing that forward to 1:15 to 13:15? Okay, so we will have, Sarah, is that fine with you? Yeah, so we'll bring the closed board meeting forward to 1:15, please. So I look forward to seeing everyone relevant at that point. And thank you very much to everyone else for your